just let me know when you're ready and I'll
Yeah,
start.
looks like we're good to go. So off you go.
All right, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the operational board, and to those on YouTube who are watching us as well. This being the last meeting of the year. I can't believe it. Where's the last 12 months gone? There you go. Right. Before we start, I'd like to ask Taryn if he could take over chairing the meeting for the very first item, which is the election of operational board chair and vice chair. Mike, Taryn?
You're on mute, Taryn.
Thank you. The appointment. This report relates to the appointment of the operational board chair and the vice chair. The operational board is required to appoint a chair and a vice chair at the first meeting following the company's AGM. It is recommended that the board appoints the operational board chair and the vice chair for 2021-2022 in accordance with the operational board's constitution. The reason for the recommendation is the current operational board chair and the vice chair appointments expire at this meeting. Matters for consideration. The operational board constitution requires that the chair and the chair of the operational board be a main board member is selected by the operational board from those main board members nominated by the board. The constitution also requires a second board member is appointed as the vice chair. The board members at this meeting at the meeting on the 30th of November made the following appointments to the operational board. Lucy Kerr, the councillor board member, Bob McDonald, the tenant board member, and Jean Shepherd, the independent board member. Bob McDonald, the current operational board chair, and Jean, the vice chair, have both indicated they would like to continue in these roles. Lucy has indicated that she would not like to be considered for either role. So could we, if you're minded, if you could vote on, if you were happy to go carry on with those appointments.
Yeah, I'll nominate Bob and Jan.
Yeah,
Thank
fine.
you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Dennis. There we go, Taryn. That's first item out of the way.
That's good. I can hand the chair back and retire then. That's the longest chairship ever. Thank you.
Right, moving on, we've got apologies. Ashton, would you like to just update us on who's officially apologised to you?
Yep, no problem. So we've received apologies from Jan Shepherd, from Holly Johnson, Lorraine Testro, Natasha Cover, Jackie Mitchell, Christine and Sarah too.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any other absences that you know of? No? Okay. Declarations of interest. I'm not aware of any changes to declaration of interest. Mine have not changed. I don't think anybody else got to change the declaration of interest? Is it the usual? Thank you.
Usual.
Thank you. Now, chair's announcements. This is, I never know what to say here, really. But I think tonight it's worth commenting that those of you who've been around for a while, like myself, will know that Jackie Mitchell is due to retire. I think it's the end of next week officially. And Jackie has been instrumental over the years in helping the operational board with the paperwork, sending stuff out. And she's been a good liaison between the operational board members and the company as a whole. So I'd just like to, and I'm sure you'll all support me on this, send to Jackie her best wishes for the future. Hope she has a good retirement and a very relaxing retirement. And I thank her on behalf of the board for all the help and assistance that she's given us over the years. I think it's fair to note that in writing.
Hear, hear.
Tony?
Yeah, can we formally minute that, Bob?
Yes, that's right. I should do that now, I think. Yeah.
We've got that down, thank you.
That's fine. Thanks, Tony. And moving forward into the new year, I'd like the operational board to be a bit more, what's the word? I'll not say aggressive, a bit more challenging with questions or what. So hopefully moving forward, we can be a bit more challenging on some of the information that we get. Perhaps I felt sometimes we should maybe just challenge a few more things. So thinking on that for the next operational board, when you get your minutes now, just think, is there any questions I'd like to ask here? And it'd be good if most of us could have some sort of question and try and challenge. Is that the word? Thank you. That's all I've got to say tonight, which is unusual for me, but being very quiet. And minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of September. We'll go through for content and then we'll go through for accuracy.
Yeah.
Right, it starts in your paperwork on page 3, but I'll call it page 1 for the benefit of the minutes. Page 1, page 2, or page 4 in your notes. Page 3, page 5 in your notes. Page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. We'll now go through for any matters arising. I'll refer to the page numbers as on your minutes. So page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9.
Yep, page 9, 21.
Dennis?
Yeah, 2164, Derwent Calf.
Got it.
Can we have a report back in June, perhaps, about the progress?
That seems reasonable. It's like about a few months gone. Yeah, I think that would be. Can you minute that for me, Ashton, please? We'll have a minute. Yes, Dennis, I think that's a reasonable request, isn't it? Anybody else on that one?
Because I think it's a scheme to get a new kitchen.
Well, you could be right, Dennis. We'll see. Tony, I think you've got your mic off. Is anybody else on that one? Don't see any hands up. Tony,
It's still on mute.
you're on mute, Tony. He's not even listening to me. Tony, you're on mute.
Too many
That's bad.
buttons on this thing. The grant was subject to City Council approval. Can we confirm that the City Council have approved it?
Anybody here who can confirm that? No, that's another thing from
I'm sure we
internet.
can. I'm sure we can take it away, Chair. To
Yeah,
come
going to
back
say,
to that.
but we'll come back with that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul?
So I couldn't confirm that, but I know that the launch did take place last weekend because we had to do a big write-up on what
Right.
happened, and our little role in that was part of the project is huge.
Yeah.
And the little element of the kitchen is just one part of a much bigger project. So I'm sure
Right.
we'll be hearing a lot more and
Right.
easily enough to report back between next year.
Okay. Happy with that, Tony? Thank you. Page 10 of the minutes. Page 11. And page 12. Okay, I've got no other matters arising from that. So can we have that as an accurate record subject to the points raised tonight?
Yep.
Thank you. Right. I've got not aware of any questions from members of the public. I've not seen any. Have you got any, Ashton? I'm not aware of any.
Nothing's been submitted to myself or Helen, Bob.
That's brilliant. That's great. Right, Kaz, moving on to you. Performance management. Have you got these nice colourful graphs again?
Yeah, Lorraine obviously isn't here, so Jim's quite kindly sort of agreed to take that place and present. So we've got sort of a few slides each.
Yeah.
Are you going to share though, Kaz? You're sharing the slides, are you?
Let me have a go. If not, then let me just see if I can get my.
Jim, the man of many talents.
Well, I didn't think I had much choice, I'm afraid. I was sort of bullied into it, you know, like normal.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I can. So you can see that. Can anyone see the?
I can see your documents thing, but not.
Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, I won't be able to see hands up, so
No.
I'll take you through the presentation. We've got a few slides each, so
Right.
I've got the next two, which are summaries really of performance for quarter two.
We're not
So-
seeing the slides yet, Kaz.
Just
Sorry?
seen
We're not seeing the slides yet. We've just got your folder.
Your quick access thing.
I think you might have shared a window rather than either the application window or screen.
Let me do that again then. Right. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
Everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Start again. So as I was saying, a couple of summary slides, and then we'll take you through the main body of the presentation.
Can you go full screen?
See if I can do that from here.
Oh.
Bear with me.
Oh.
Remember, we're live. Are you able to help at all, Jim, with this one now?
It should be coming on live now. Sorry.
Right. No, it's not a problem.
Right. If you can see that, let me just.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Okay.
brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Tess.
is okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll go to the next slide. So, really, these are highlights, both in terms of areas that are performing well and areas that are exceptions. So, on Q2 highlights performing well, and those measures that are on track for Q2 and Q4, all our satisfaction measures are on track. All complaints resolved at stage 2 and to timescale are on track. Number of escalations, none of those complaints resolved initial contact. That's very positive, as in Q1. All our maintenance compliance measures are on target.
Good.
Non-decent homes and energy efficiency also, as we had at Q1, on target. Average time to re-let local authority homes, Q2, our average 23 days, and that's come down quite well from quarter, and Q4 forecast is for 24 days, which is our target for this year. So those are the areas where we're doing okay. And then some of the areas that we're concentrating on, obviously, some of this will be familiar. So we're off track at Q2 for average days lost to sickness, absence. They're currently at 9.25 days. That's slipping from last quarter, which is about 8, just under 8.
Is that due to COVID, Cass, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the last slide will take you through that. Ian will look at, gives us a picture across the board, but certainly COVID has had an impact, both in sickness, absence, but also in terms of other performance measures. They do affect, for instance, accommodation, new home starts and finishes. So, the COVID impact continues this year as it continued last year. So that's a theme I think you'll hear through the presentation.
I'm probably jumping in a bit. Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. So obviously, rent arrears also, current tenants and rent arrears as a percentage rent roll. Those are off track according to the forecast. Those that are forecast off track for Q4 are the ones below. So as I mentioned before, new home starts on site, new homes delivered, and affordable homes. These are the cumulative sort of numbers from 2008 that are completed. Those are off track. Rent loss through voids. So these are empty properties. That's off track. And then finally, as I mentioned before, average days lost to sickness absence. The forecast now for year end is 9 as an average days lost per employee against a target of 7. So you can see that theme, that impact is certainly there. So the next slide we've got, I think, Jim, are you taking that?
I've got that one, Kaz, if you want me to start on that one.
All right, Michael, yeah.
Yeah, covering for Lorraine on the satisfaction, and it's good to be able to cover a slide with so many green satisfaction ones. I know there's a high list of satisfaction ones there, and the detail behind them, all of these are attached in Appendix 1. And I think what is really encouraging on a lot of these is it's not just based on some small sample numbers. So, for example, the first one around tenant satisfaction, that's based on 447 replies. So, that's a really good representative sample, and to get such high levels of satisfaction, 96% is remarkable, really.
It is really.
So, yeah, all of those ones are really positive. Were there any that anybody wanted to particularly talk about the greens before we go on to the one amber at all?
Is it? I may have discussed this, Michael, in the past, because I'm funny when it comes to percentages. I mean, I don't know whether you and Cass can work on it, or we think it's a futile exercise, but 96% of how many?
Well, in this case, it was 96% of the 447 customers that were surveyed.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that figure would be in there. It's a 96% of 447. That means a lot more to somebody like me who sometimes thinks. That's just it's just I don't know if it can be done or not. It's just the way I like to see things done.
Yeah, in the appendix, which has got like the detailed tables behind it, in the commentary, there's a bit more context to these figures there, and that's where it explains the sample size number. And I think that's a lesson for us all, actually, when we're doing these commentaries, to have that in that more detailed one to give assurance that it's based on a reasonable sample number.
Yeah. I have to be fair, Mike, in your defence, you're right. There's quite a detail there. No, if I'd have gone, probably I'm jumping the gun again.
Yeah, so if there's no further queries on the greens, I'll discuss the one amber, which is on the ASB satisfaction with ASB service. I'm not quite sure. When I was looking at these, I wasn't quite sure why we had a picture of a flat masonette, but in relation to ASB, but it's a nice flat anyway. So the ASB one is currently shown as amber, again at 92%, but again, this is one where I think statistics can throw a funny picture out. This one's based on 61 replies. In 57 of the replies, strongly agreed or agreed that they were satisfied with the way that the case was handled. 3 were neither nors, and 1 was just dissatisfied. And I'm sure a number of us are fully aware over the years how we should be treating neither nors, or should they be included in or included out of the samples. But those 3 neither nor replies are skewing the figures, because in reality there was just 1 dissatisfied reply out of the 61, which would push the percentage way over into the green. And I'm told that one case has been looked into as to why the person was not satisfied with that individual one. So
I think we've discussed this, Michael, haven't we? Sorry, Michael. Sorry,
we have.
I think we've discussed. Discussed and think. Take out those neither nors. It's futile. I think you say it skews the figures. So perhaps that's something long term we should look at.
What we do is we try and collate these figures and report them on in a consistent way as to how Housemarque would expect them to be reported. So if neither nors are to be classed as dissatisfied from a Housemarque perspective, then that's how we would collate the figures. So I think it's just putting a bit of context in there. So thankfully there was just 1 dissatisfied out of the 61 that came back on this ASB satisfaction on people's cases. Any queries on that particular KPI?
I was just going to say, for those of us who've been around a while, it's great. It's good to see ASB creeping up there and getting better and better. No credit to the team.
Okay, so we have the next one.
Yep, next slide.
Yep, that's me. So I'm going to talk you through some of the customer service, and as you can see, complaints, it's set at green. So we're on track for Q2 and for Q4, and some positive reading here again. So complaints resolved at initial contacts is at 95.4%, and those that are responding, the timescale is 99.4. And yep, we can do a bit better to try and get up to that 0.6% EXO will be good. Resolutions at stage 2 is 100%. And there's been no escalations to ombudsman. So then you start to look at what some of those percentages mean into figures. Total complaints, we've had 87, and 82 of them were resolved at stage 1, which is at 95.4%.
But even looking at the resolution at stage 2, I mean that's commendable. I mean, a few years ago you'd never think you'd ever see that. But yeah, it's good. It's all going the right way.
Yep. Any other questions on that before I move on to the online bit?
No, it's fine, Jim. Thanks.
So my account is sat at blue, so it's achieving well and beyond expectations. So we've currently got 9,396 customers signed up to my account, which is a 4.7% up on from Q1, and obviously it's projected to exceed Q4 because the initial target was 9,000, and the anticipated increase will be another 2,000. So that's all positive there as well. So that's a lot of hard work from the teams that are coming to contact with customers on a daily basis. you know, and prioritising this as a route forward for them.
No, that's good.
That's
Okay.
me done. No questions.
No.
Next one's new homes.
Hi,
I think that's Steve.
changing the that's Ian. Who's new
Ian, sorry,
homes.
sorry.
Yeah,
Can't
sorry.
see Ian.
Yeah, I'm here. Don't worry. Okay, new homes. I was going to say it's a bad news story, but it isn't really.
There's a question apparently from Tony.
Oh.
Oh no, it's just popped up. Sorry, it just popped up on my screen.
I think Taryn's given an answer to some. Is he?
Sorry, I hovered over it and didn't ask a question.
It's in relation to the Derby Cafe. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about it. That looks like it's been approved by Derby City Council. Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah. Okay, new
Okay.
homes. Okay, so Q2 showed that we started 35 by the end of Q2, which shows that we're probably going to miss our year-end target of 75. 41 homes were delivered in Q2. Again, we forecast to end the year-end target. Now, there are a number of things going on here at the moment. A lot of our new stock we purchased on the open market on the acquisitions program through expending capital receipts, and the market went a little bit crazy post-COVID, so we weren't able to access the properties. You have to respond very quickly to pick properties up, certainly in our price range anyway, because when we're purchasing properties, we have to balance not only the cost of the property but also refurbishing it. So it's a delicate balance really. So that impacted it slightly. And also by Q2, we delivered the Gerrard Street property slightly behind programme. In fact, it was delivered the week after the end of September. It was delivered the first week of October. So there's 4 properties there, which were delivered late. We delivered those, we built those ourselves. So if any of you are in the city centre and fancy driving down Gerrard Street, which is not all, perhaps during daylight hours, near the chip shop there, you'll see 4 really quite beautiful properties. Also, because of COVID last year, it meant that the new starts this year have been pushed back a little bit, but we've currently just started three schemes at got one at Berwick Close, one at Cumming Street, and one at Chesapeake Road in Chaddesden. So and they'll be delivering properties into the new year. What I will say on the completions later in the year is the property market's changed a bit again. So mid-year we're having to seek other work for the guy that goes around buying properties because he hadn't got any to buy, but now it's picked up a little bit. So we're seeing an increase in throughput on acquisitions. So it's changing a little bit there as well. So it's a very fluctuating position. Positions can change in a quarter. So, if the right sort of properties crop up at the right time of year, at the right sort of price, then we can easily get back on track. So we'll see how it goes. Not for the one to try on anyway. We're very active out there.
Tony.
Do we still have an overall target of 700 properties?
Yeah, I think the overall target hasn't changed, yes. This is a small fluctuation within a year, within a multi-year program. So, and as I say, it's extremely volatile at the moment, the homes market. As if any of you tried to buy a house will know.
It is, and I can confirm we are all over Ian and his team to buy properties from housing options point of view. So we do work regular with him, contact, encouraging the purchase. But like you say, it's a very difficult market for us to compete in.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jim.
We're also doing a lot more analysis now on the kind of properties together with Jim's team and the Rains team about what sort of properties, what size of properties we need to meet the needs of our customers. So it's we're having a lot more intelligent approach than perhaps we've had in the past. So,
Michael.
Yeah, just to add, I know we've been concentrating on acquisitions in this discussion, and that's a legacy really of the council's necessity to use up its right to buy receipts. And not wishing to get too technical, but the right to buy receipt rules have changed recently, and now there's a lot longer time period that the council have got to spend the right to buy receipts, and that flexibility is going to push the priority towards new builds rather than acquisitions over the coming years. And
Right.
in terms of average age of stock and additionality to stock, new builds are exactly what we're after to supplement the numbers that we're going to be acquiring. And what the council is quite rightly doing is looking at land sites that it does own and seeing if they're suitable for housing, and if possible, switching them into the housing revenue account for development over the next few years. So that's why there's that sentence in there about a healthy pipeline of upcoming projects.
No, that's good, Michael. Thanks for that input.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we move on? Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, rent arrears. Just wanted to give some assurance on this area, to be honest, because you'll see from the reports that there's a number of red KPIs on that, and they're all linked to this current tenants arrears figure. I'll just explain that top left hand statement, which says off target for Q2 3.9%, and what that relates to is our current tenants arrears figure at September. It was 2.2 million, and that's divided by what we call the rent debit of just over 57 million for the year to get that 3.9%. And that 57 million is a combination of rent and service charges that we would normally levy for this year. So we're currently at 3.9%, which is slightly higher than target. It's actually, that figure is actually in cash terms £10,000 lower than last year. And jumping over to the graph on the top right hand corner, I think that's what I wanted to concentrate on, and I appreciate it's probably very small on people's screens. If we have a look at the red dotted line to start with, that's the target. So that's what we're comparing our benchmarks against. And what I've realised now is when I set the target figures for each quarter, oh, we've jumped a slide. We just go back one. When I set the targets for each quarter, I'd actually been a bit optimistic and thought that the legacy of COVID would not be as strong as it currently has been, and it would have followed a similar pattern to previous years in terms of the rent arrears. Yes, there's a step change increase, which I'll explain why, but in terms of the profile each quarter, I thought it was going to be similar to the green line, which is the 2019-20 years.
Yeah.
What's happened in reality is the current year's rent arrears figure is effectively mirroring what happened last financial year. And we're reasonably confident that by the end of the financial year, by March 2022, the current tenants arrears figure will have dropped back down to around 1.8 million, which is the year-end target. So although our quarterly and monthly targets appear that they're not being met, we're reasonably confident that the figure at year end will come back in line with what the year end target is. Now, I know I've been pushing this line that I think arrears will be consistent with last year's, but there's no question that there is difficulties out there with the increased costs of living, and as we stand today, the arrears figure are probably at the peak level that they would be throughout the year. They're at around the they're at 2.49 million. So that's the highest they'll be this year, and they'll come back down between now and year end. We've got 3 rent-free weeks, which boost that's what brings the figure right down. And we often find in the lead up to Christmas, rent arrears struggle, and then that they improve after Christmas. Not wishing to repeat what I said last time and what's in the head of service update, but I think it's really important to note that when we look at the breakdown of our arrears cases, we've got 168 tenants with arrears over £2,000, and that's an increase of just over 100 tenants from the March 20 position, where we had 63 tenants over 2,000. And that increase in total arrears is about 350,000. So those 100 tenants are have generated effectively 350,000 extra arrears, and that's the reason why the year-end figure will be higher from 2019-20, the green line, to what we're anticipating it to be at the end of this year, well, effectively following the blue line. Now, you'll be fully aware that the full legal process that we can follow through with tenants who are not engaging and they've got significant arrears, that's not fully opened up yet. We have got some court slots booked for January, and we will be pushing more of the relevant cases through to the courts. And what we do find is when the more stronger action starts to take place, you start getting engagement at the later stage with tenants who have got arrears. So we're hopeful when we've got the full collection powers available, that will help with arrears collection as well. There's only been 3 evictions so far this year, and when you take that in the context of 12,500 tenants, I think that's quite remarkable, really. And 2 of them were abandoned properties, so they're technical evictions anyway. So just to summarise, the current tenants arrears figure does look high, but I think it's more of a profiling issue than an underlying problem. And we're hopeful that by year end it will come back in line with what we had set the targets to be at the end of at the start of the year. Happy to take any questions on the arrears process.
That's a nice little positive note to end on, Michael.
Thank you.
Any questions, anyone? No. Okay. Next, maintenance.
That would be me. Evening all.
Steve,
like
hi.
Hi, all right. Sorry, I sounded like Dixon of Dot Green there. That's not good, is it? That's a good start. Right,
Showing
so
your
this
age.
is absolutely yeah. So this is affectionately our big 6 areas of compliance, affectionately known as, that we obviously concentrate a great deal on and making sure we are compliant in these areas amongst the other ones that we do as well. So first one is our gas. So as it says there, 99.8% of properties with a valid gas safety certificate. So just to give operational board members a number to that, that actually means that at that point at the end of the quarter, we had 23 properties that didn't have a valid gas certificate. We're still 100% compliant because all of those properties would have had multiple visits and attempts to get in. And potentially we'll be working with those tenants if we can to try and arrange to get in, depending on what their issues were, or if there was some issue with COVID, etc., and so on. So 23 just gives you an idea out of the 13,000 properties we do a year that it's not a big number,
Steve,
but it's something. Go on, Bob. Sorry,
Steve. Just going to say, is there any trend to there's a small amount of people who you can't get into? Is there any trend? Or does there seem any logical rationale?
No. I mean, we'll sometimes have the same people that are difficult to get in, but they're not necessarily part of the 23, because if we know we've got an issue with a property, we'd normally try and work in different ways to do it. We have actually done on a couple of occasions now, we've actually gone to and gone to court to persuade our tenants to let us in, not for an eviction or anything like that,
just a visit,
but as a bit of a gain entry. And that on the occasions we've done it has just spurred them on to let us in. So we've not had to take any sort of drastic action, but going through the court process has made a difference. But we've felt the need to do that because obviously we can't just not do these necessary services. So we are looking at different avenues to get in and different ways to get in. And the number is a lot lower than it has been, obviously, and we're confident in some ways that it will continue to go down. We'd love it to be 0 one day.
I'd like it. Yeah,
but it just at any point to hit 0 would be nice. But there's obviously with the number of tenants we've got and the issues and so on, that will be a challenge to do that, to be honest. But we are, I would add again, 100% compliant because we are making the necessary efforts to get in. Yeah.
Okay.
With regard to electrical, I mean, that's slightly better, 99.9% properties with a certificate. So to give you that number, there are 17 properties that are without an electrical certificate. So again, a relatively small number there of what we're actually doing. And again, Chris works hard at getting into those properties. So we're 100% compliant for efforts of getting in. So we're definitely moving in the right direction in both those areas. Obviously, we never give up. We'll always try and get as good as we can on that. But it's a challenge. Fair enough.
All right.
The other areas,
Steve.
Oh, sorry, the question. Sorry, Tony.
Got a question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are any of the properties for gas and electric the same?
Good question. Good question.
Probably, to be fair, Tony, I can't honestly answer that. I would say
That's
to you
fine.
almost definitely not, because what we always do is if we ever get a property where one team is struggling, they immediately talk to the other team because they work in the same area. It's very unusual that they're the same because they're very often not at the same time, because one's a yearly, one's a 5-yearly, and the cycles never fall at the same time. So it's highly unlikely, but I couldn't bet my life on it, to be honest.
No, that's what
But
we want.
good question.
Honesty.
Good question. Yeah. Okay. The third target: 100% of common areas inspected every 12 months for asbestos. That is 100%. So that's good news. And that's Taryn's area. 100% communal areas with a valid fire risk assessment.
Good.
Again, that's 100%. So that is good as well. I think we've just introduced we've just introduced a new piece of software that's coming in called SHE, with regard to health and safety, connected to our fire risk assessments and the works we do from it. So we're open to see, this new piece of software should make us even better when we get the works, to make sure that those works are done. So that's moving in the right direction as well. Tony's back.
Tony?
When you've done these assessments for asbestos or fire risk, is that reported in the communal areas anywhere, or is that just on your system? Do the residents know that you've been and done it?
I believe, I would say not. I mean, if Taryn's still on board, he might know better than me. I don't think so, Tony. I mean, the issue for us is that, for example, with asbestos, we need to check every 12 months to make sure that if there is asbestos, there's no issue with it. Okay.
Yeah.
And just inspect the property generally to make sure. So from that perspective, we would necessarily, I would think, tell the tenants and say, you know what, there's nothing to worry about from asbestos. I don't think we'd volunteer that information. So I'll probably say no is the answer to your question.
Well, I'm sure most people aren't worried about it, but it's just if you've been and done it as sort of a tick sheet somewhere that says, you've done 2021's inspection.
And it could have a positive thing as well, Tony, couldn't it? It's sure that we are actually carrying out the inspections.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I can pass that back to the heads of service, or Taryn in this case with asbestos can pass that back, and fire risk assessment is them as well.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
The fifth one is communal water systems, which is back to mine. 100% of those have been inspected and have a valid water risk assessment carried out or in place. So that's good. Again, that's an area we're working on and looking at now with regard to our own properties, because these are communal areas that we inspect, and we're looking at that in case things or the law changes or legislation changes. So we will be looking into that more and more as time goes on, because potentially in the next few years that might change, but the current law is what's down there, and that's what we actually do. The next one, the last one, is Ian's area, which is Lola, which is this lift inspections, and we are 100%. Sorry, Bob, do you say?
I was just going to say, Steve, you know my little hobby thing. Can you just tell us what Lola stands for?
I knew he was going to ask me that, and
well, you
told you
wrong
this
then.
last time, Bob, and I forgot. But Ian, what's Lola stand for?
Hang on while I'm on Google, because
it's just
you
for the
should
benefit.
know. This is your bit.
No, I did,
benefit
because
of
Bob
everybody.
asked this last time. It's a list
I know
of
you ask it every time. It's just
Steve,
Steve,
wrong.
while you're waiting,
Page
there's a
bit.
question. Steve, there's a question on the question panel.
Okay.
While you're waiting,
Okay. Yeah.
No, Elliot.
Lucy's put it there.
Yeah. Am I waiting for a question? Or?
I think it's in
No,
it's
no,
in the
it's-
it's in the question, Steve. It's
in
in
the
relation to
box.
trying to be able to, collate the gas engineers' visit along with the electrical engineers, and is that something that could be done?
The short answer to that, honestly, is no, because we have got 13,000 properties. Gas services are carried out every year, and electrical services are carried out every 5 years. We would love to even do it where we do all streets at the same time, but because of
we've
things
talked
like
about this.
if people don't get it, if we don't get in first time, they get put back. It's almost impossible to do them both at the same time and keep it like that, because if you miss one moves, you can't move the other one. So as much as we'd love to do that, as much as we'd love to go down, say, Lord Street 2468, because we'd blast round, it's not really possible to do that. You know, and I think that, to be fair, is how everybody else would be as well. It just doesn't work. It'd be lovely to do it, but it doesn't work like that.
Right, guys.
Unfortunately.
Thanks.
Lola, Ian.
There you go.
Yeah, it's in
Sorted
the notes.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
I can't see the notes.
Jim,
Lifting operations and lifting equipment regulations.
Okay. So
Bob
most
asked that-
important.
Yeah,
Sorry,
he asked
Ian.
that last time. Bob asked that
He did.
last time, actually.
He did.
This is for the benefit of others who weren't at that meeting.
Don't ask us next time, Bob, or we'll have it written
No.
down ready.
Put
That's
it
my
in
message.
brackets.
That's my message.
So the good news with this one is we are 100% compliant on those lifts.
There
within
are
the
4.
6-month
We have
forecast.
yes, we have 14 passenger lifts, so it's not a huge number.
No, but the main thing is the safe, and that's the thing that counts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And just to say, the Lola inspection varies. There's an annual one, there's a 5-year one, and there's a 10-year one. So
Right.
they do change over time. The 10-year one is they put 2 very heavy people in it, drop it, and see if it doesn't come up. But something like that. They simulate heavy weights anyway. That's the whole purpose.
yeah.
So
And
it sounds silly. That's what they do.
And again, taking up Tony's point, perhaps a certificate in the lift or somewhere to say you've carried them out, so people can feel safe in the lifts. Just a thought.
You can probably have something on the website though, or something. Probably, do you think? I don't know.
Okay.
Food for thought. Right, moving on, Steve.
Any more questions for these ones, or can we please move on?
Hang on, somebody's got a hand up, but I can't see who it
Okay,
is.
no, I don't.
I think it's an old one from Taron.
Is it
an old hand, right?
Okay. Sorry, no, it's a new one.
Go on,
Just
Taron.
to confirm that all fire risk assessments are available to all residents and tenants. We do make them available, and the same with asbestos records. By law, we've got to make them available. But I think we could, taking Tony's point on board, say when we've done the inspection. So that's something I'll take back.
And it's going the extra mile, isn't it, for the customer? And
Yeah,
they can
on
see
the notice
instantly. So
board.
I just think it's good. Yeah.
Very good. That's lovely.
Thanks, Taron.
Okay.
Okay.
So can we move on, Cass, to the next one? So this is mine as well, isn't it? So, right, this is a relatively a good news story, because obviously this is talking about the voids process, the whole voids process. As you well know, the target for this is 24 days, and we've had struggles with this last year particularly, and this year at the beginning of the year we were very much well above 24 days. As you can see from the slide, it mentions now that we're at 23. I can probably update that slightly. It's cheating slightly because we're past quarter 2, but we are actually 22 point something now. So
good.
It genuinely is heading in the right direction through a lot of work from our staff and from teams massively working together. Housing management, repairs, allocations, everybody's worked really hard together to do this, and I think it's also worth mentioning that is through a COVID pandemic that this has happened. So we're talking here about issues of sickness, which we'll talk about in a minute, have impacted on the work. Recruitment's a biggie for us to get actual any trades in at the moment, to be quite honest. We've got lots of vacancies, but even despite that, the work of our staff has given us some good numbers there. But rest assured, and you probably know this from Maria and the board anyway, we are wanting that downward trend to continue, because why not? Let's get it down more, whilst keeping the quality up. So that's the main plan.
And the knock-on effect, of course, is Michael's happy because there's more people paying rent.
Absolutely. So like we've put down here, we're almost on target. The target is 1%. We're doing better than last year. And if we can carry on in a downward trend, as we seem to be, he might get green on this one, which would be lovely, wouldn't it?
That'd be brilliant. Be brilliant.
Absolutely. Any questions on voids or this slide?
Not from... hang on. I don't know who was first, so I'll start with Tony, then Lucy.
You're on mute, Tony.
You mute, Tony.
I'll get the hang of this one day. Are we still looking at the standards that you do for relets, for voids?
Absolutely. I mean, funnily enough, it's something we were talking about this morning, and I was talking to Errol, who in his one-to-one earlier this week. Now we've got times much better under control. We do need to make sure, don't we, that the quality of the product that comes back for our customers is as good as it can be. And I think there's been one or two examples we've seen come back where, with if we take it, the void works generally at the moment are averaging 12 days out of that 23. For me, if we take 13 days, but make sure that the void comes back in a really good condition. It would seem stupid to not do that. So it really is a biggie for us at the moment that time is good, but so is quality. And we want that to be as good as possible. So we're working with our operatives all the time that when they hand the void back effectively, they sign to say it's of the lettable standard. We need it to be, not nearly, not very good. It needs to be the lettable standard. So please, Tony, you can be really assured that that is something that we're very keen on making sure is right, and will be. It's been something we talk about all the time, but moving forward now, it's not all about time, it's also about quality. So yes is the answer to your question.
And rest assured, Tony, once this COVID thing relaxes a bit, I'll be doing my usual visits around to look at these properties.
Yeah,
so.
fine. And we'd love you to do that, to be honest. We'd love the tenants to be back involved with inspecting properties at the end. And, on a random basis, that would be great. We'd like you to do that. Absolutely.
And that's what we'll do. Lucy, you were next.
Didn't Customer Voice look at this some time ago?
Sorry, Tony.
Sorry, wasn't Customer Voice looking at this a few years ago?
Yep. They've looked at lettable standard, and I've been running independent inspections as well. Right, Lucy.
So yeah, I just wanted to query the exception here. It says that we're expecting to miss the target at 1.2% by the end of the year.
Right.
So why are we expecting more vacancies, which extended rental losses coming into year?
Shall I take that one?
Yeah, if you want.
Shall I take that one? Because I was going to raise this point because Lucy's picked up on a really valid. It's not an inconsistency. The first KPI, looking at average time to relet, looks at what we call active voids only. And active voids are ones which don't need any major works on them and can be turned around quickly. The second KPI, which looks at the rent loss, takes into account active voids, but also what we call passive voids, which are properties that have been set aside when they're void to do some major works on them. And what we're finding, quite understandably, is that when certain properties come back and need a large amount of work on them, the passive void period is obviously longer than what a normal active void would be. So the rent loss on passive voids is higher than rent loss on active voids, and therefore that's why the rent loss percentage, it looks like it's going to be missed. It's because the average time on passive voids is higher than actives. Now, I think that's not to be too alarming, because we need to bear in mind that a day's worth of rent is about £12. But if you can do a lot of work in the property and get that property up to a good lettable standard whilst it's empty, it's a lot better for the tenants, and it's a lot better for us as from a commercial perspective as well, to do the work on the property whilst it's empty. And remember, we're still clear with the backlog of a lot of acquired properties which are being acquired at quite relatively low prices, and a lot of these homes need quite a lot of work doing on them, and that's why the passive period is quite high on them, because they're having a lot of modernisation work on them. But as soon as we own the property, the void loss counter starts, and that's why it's shown as missing. But it's a management decision really to do the work at whilst the property is empty, rather than around the tenant once it's been let.
I think we're
to summarise that, since the end of quarter 2, i.e. in quarter 3, we've taken on a number of quite poor properties, and they're going to have extended periods of upgrading, which is why between the end of quarter 2 and the end of the year, with that percentage rent lost will be going up. So it's because of our recent purchases.
Yes, and you may be aware that there's a number of acquisitions going on in relation to the RSAP programme at the minute, which is like a rough sleeping initiative funded through homelessness grants.
So then additional properties that we're expecting to come into the portfolio in a poor state shortly.
And in future years there'll be fewer acquisitions and more new builds, so that the amount of time spent on passive voids will be less.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I would add to what Michael's just said is it's less of a management position or decision moving forward to some degree because of legislation such as Homes Fit for Human Habitation and disrepair. You're not really in a position to be letting homes that need anything other than really extremely small amounts of work doing. So I think the days of we'll fit this around the tenant are quite, relatively large. You're not going to get to be able to do that anymore. So I think more and more we want, and Michael's right, doing it when the tenant's not there is far more preferable and better for them as a customer than having work around them.
And to add there as well, from my service area, we find it exceptionally hard to, convince a customer to take a property that needs significant work doing to it. They want the property ready to move in. So, it makes more sense for us to deal with it there and then.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add, of a positive note, by the way, is 24 days is the forecast for the end of the year. It will be better than that. I think we should big ourselves up here, take a risk, don't minute it, but I think it'll be considerably better than 24 days.
Make a note, Ashton. But just to finish this one off, I may say that as someone who's benefited from Steve's logic that, a property do the job before the tenant moves in, if I'd have moved into the property I'm currently in and the state it was in, it wouldn't have been good. It was better to let the Steve and his gang get in and get it up to a decent home standard than let it. So what Steve's saying, I can say from personal experience, is really pays off.
Can I just add, Chair, as the person responsible for refurbishing passive voids, and there's stories behind most of them. Yeah. Sometimes we've got them on compulsory purchases. I mean, 58 Haddon Street, we spent £110,000, I think, getting it back to a decent state. We acquire properties which immediately are identified as being suitable for people who need an adaptation. So we've got 2 properties now on Hatfield Road which we spent £50,000 on prior to letting them, but they will be fully adapted for the customers that need them. So they've all got different stories, and I would say it's a massive improvement. The number that are passive has reduced significantly in the past 18 months.
I think you summed that up by saying putting the customers first. And that's what we should be doing, and I think he's right.
But there are all sorts of stories, but each one's got a story.
Yeah.
Which in fairness, we have to report to SMT monthly and account for them. So we're really on top of it.
That's good. Okay, thanks.
I'm slightly here that Bob Ian thinks that all passive voids are done by his team because it is a joint effort between both teams. Just to make that clear. Just to add, all the ones which get turned around quickly are delivered by Steve's team. Because they're small, only because they're smaller than yours. To be fair,
yes, all the ones which have got trees growing out the ground floor and all issues come to my team. So
all the problem with the delays, my team filled all those problems.
They do.
I love it. I love it.
It's teamworking at its best.
Perhaps you should move to slide 11 and say no more.
I think we should, Steve. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So this is me. This is a bit of an overview from Housing Options, looking at some of the homelessness figures, and these are some sort of headliners here. On the next slide, I'll go into more detail with them. So, number of approaches to Housing Options in Q2 was 667, and that's 3% higher than Q1. Where 24% of those approaches were from customers experiencing domestic abuse. And I know last time there was a question, I think, Lucy, you raised around that, and we've done some digging into that to try and understand what these figures look like. And the trends demonstrate across the last few years. I've had Trish Thomas, who's the service manager, look at this, and that figure isn't anything out of kilter as such. So we are seeing a high number.
But no, it is a 24% increase in approaches. It's not 24% of approaches are due to a domestic abuse.
24%.
But do we know whether that is from 4 people to 5? Or
I haven't got that figure.
We haven't got
that out for you. Yeah, that's another one of Bob's niggles. Yeah, so I will dig that out for you. So, Kaz, if we can have a look at what 24% equates to for the next one, that'll be great.
It just helps,
Yeah. And then moving on to cases resolved under prevention duty, Q2, the actuals was 265, which is a 6% reduction. And I'll go into more detail on the next slide. Right. And cases resolved under relief duty for Q2 was 111. If you can just look at the graph there, you can just see we're seeing consistent numbers of high approaches coming into housing options. So if you have the next slide, Kaz, please. So housing options, again, talking about some of the bits that we deal with. We've currently got 8,000, well, the end of quarter 2, we had 8,180 applicants registered on Homefinder. And that's split. And so that obviously all of those people will be under categories in line with the allocations policy. 4,605 bids in the last year. So that's 3% up on quarter 1. And that's 66%. 66 of those were auto bids, and we did a lot of work around trying to make sure the auto bids weren't skewing figures and making it more accessible for our customers. 265. There were 265 cases resolved under the prevention duty in quarter 2, which equates to a total of 546 overall for the year to date figure at the end of quarter 2. There was 251 cases were resolved under the relief duty for the year, which was 111 of those in the quarter 2 period, which is a 6% decrease from quarter 1. We've had 122 single households placed into bed and breakfast from April to the end of quarter 2, which results in 13 customers being placed during that period, which is 2 placements down from quarter 1. 80 families have been placed in bed.
Excuse me, can I just ask, do we know how many of those single households are still in B&B? How many are there at the moment?
I haven't got that figure at the moment, no, but we have a huge sort of campaign around the move on for people who are in bed and breakfast. So the variety of options that we have. We have move on specialist officer who works within the rough sleeper team. We have a move on specialist officer within the singles team, and so they're always trying to look at pathways to be able to get those individuals out of bed and breakfast. And the first point of call obviously is Milestone House. And the thing to be factor in as well with Milestone House, we are operating a COVID restriction in there, so we have a whole wing that is not in use, and that's our COVID wing, which means we've got a number of units down just in case one of our customers in Milestone House is contracted COVID or suspected. We have somewhere for them to go and isolate. So we are operating at lower numbers. And I go back to some of the sorry, Lucy.
It would be interesting to see the trend through the year, because at the beginning of the year the number is going to be 0. Here we've got to 122 by the end of September. So if we can see how many are coming in and how many are leaving.
Yeah, and it goes back to some of the things that we were talking about earlier with some of the stuff that Ian was talking about. And move on is very difficult for us. The market has dried up, particularly around private rented sector. A lot of our move on would have been through that, where we have financial initiatives to be able to enhance the package for the private landlord to take one of our customers. But unfortunately, it's a seller's market, as Ian referred to earlier, and a lot of the people we were working with in the private rented sector have decided that renting isn't for them anymore, and they're capitalising on the high price of the property. So are selling. And equally, it's also, if it's not that, then a lot of the private rent sector market are absolutely adamant they only want people in work. So we're in a difficult position at the moment to create natural flow and movement. But we have got some of the properties that we're working with around pathways. So it is a real push constantly.
Tony?
Have you got any pressure coming on you from all these refugees coming in from various places?
No, so you have to be eligible and qualifying to be allocated a property through the Derby Allocations policy. And so the Afghanistan Families project that's been operated by the City Council, we are working with key people across the council and to be able to try and help resolve that. And some of those are not bed and breakfast single placements. They don't come under us, Tony, at all. That's not part of our responsibility. That will be the City Council and not us.
Fair question, yeah.
I forgot where I was now. Families in bed and breakfast.
Yeah, I think this is really sad. But the same flow in, flow out applies as to the singles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 80 families have been placed in bed and breakfast since April to the end of Q2, which relates in 15 during that period of time. Again, we are hugely monitored on the stay that we can have families in. So it's 42 days maximum that we can have a family staying in bed and breakfast. And so we sort of have to move people on and work intensively. And again, unfortunately, one of the barriers we have at the moment is availability of properties.
Yeah.
We're seeing an all-time low of turnover last year and this year during COVID of people moving on from properties. And again, the private rented sector is drying up. So that's why we have a large number of people that we move out of bed and breakfast into our temporary accommodation properties.
Right.
So 11 new households were placed in temporary accommodation, other than bed and breakfast. So yeah, that's where we're at. It's a very complicated and difficult arena at the moment, and one of the biggest barriers I have, and like I say, don't sound like a broken record, is move on, is flow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, and
so that's why we work. That's why we work so closely with Ian's team. Why we work so closely with Steve for the ready to lets on the voids, and equally as well, you know, that work that we've done with Tony Gardner around understanding what our demand picture looks like is absolutely fundamental for us to be able to get the stock right. So you know, we're able to now look at those 4,000 odd people who are placing bids. What are they placing bids for? So that when we start to acquire properties and build properties, we've got the properties that are going to actually tackle that.
So that's very proactive, isn't it?
Okay.
Any questions? Nope.
No. Moving on.
This is Ian.
Hi. Okay, this is asset management. Performing well. It's green. Non-decency, this indicator there tells you that all our stock meets the decent home standard, basically.
You expect nothing less.
Well, and it's the rationale. It's the reason why we have an asset management strategy, and we have investment in our
absolutely
stock. The next one, energy efficiency. The average SAP for our dwellings is 75.5, and the year-end forecast is 75.5. Now, this doesn't move very much. You might think, well, it's not very interesting PI, but if you think that the average SAP across social housing is around 65, so that shows you that we are performing well relative to our peers. And if you think we are doing some work in the background, this year to date, we've insulated the 3 blocks of flats at Mackworth on the Old Witch and Finchley Avenue. The works, they'll finish this week.
Oh, that's good.
And their SAP, we've installed external wall insulation. Their SAPs will have all gone up from 74 to 79. Artificially, they were high because they've all got solar panels, so they get a higher rating. Yeah. But we're just putting a bid in for some funding, which will enable us to start work on some of the cast iron houses by the Spider Island in Allenton.
Oh, yeah.
There are 8 of them down there. They've got an average SAP down there of about 62. Now, if we can get those insulated next year, that SAP will go up to 72. So with this work in the background, if we increase in properties by, say, 10 points, it will, bit by bit, increase this overall SAP rating. Bearing in mind this is for 13,000 properties, and you know we're just talking about working on 100, 110. But it does have an impact, and we are trying to work away and improve them. In fact, one other thing I've just forgotten, we're getting some Green Homes grant funding to do 22 one-off properties around the town, around the city, and improve their SAP rating individually as well. They're all currently rated. I've got an EPC of a D or an E, and we'll get them up to a C or a B. So that's good work.
I think Michael's got a question for you. Or
yeah, Ian.
I've got a question for you.
I always ask this, and I should remember it, but I think it'd be useful for us all, really. When we talk about a SAP rating, that's obviously an industry standard that we're aware of. But what does that equate to in like an EPC rating? Is it 75 roughly a C?
Yes. Really, it's in bands. So, for example, something like a D will be between 55 and 65. And a B will be between 65 and 75, something like that. the SAP, as Michael said, the standard assessment procedure is the benchmark for measuring.
Yeah.
Whereas measuring energy efficiency, but an EPC takes more environmental factors into account.
Right.
If you think the War Memorial Village properties, which we built and we completed earlier this year, they had SAP ratings between 103 and 109. So they really are.
They must.
Yeah. Virtually. If we could just have had, we'd have had another couple of measures. That was as much as we could possibly do. So. So a lot of work going on in the background there. As I say, you look at that PI every month, you think, well, what is anything happening at all? Does anything happen? Well, it is a lot happening. So,
and Ian, can I just clarify what the longer term plan is? Is it to get all of the stock to EPC C or above by 2030? And there's about 400 to do, is there?
There is, yeah. That's about right. Yeah, because of course there's going to be restrictions on letting properties if you're not of a certain SAP rating. So so we have to get them up there. And things like Green Homes Grant. See, also, say next year, the flats on Knightsbridge, there are 46 there. We're attracting £380,000 worth of ERDF funding for that.
That's good.
Where we'll be not only insulating the properties but installing air source heat pumps to those properties as well. So by end of September in 22, we'll have finished that work. So all quite exciting.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited anyway.
No, it's all good stuff.
Okay. Right now, if I crave your indulgence, can we do these two back to back, these slides? Because I'm not an HR professional. I've got a bit of colour to add to the notes here because I've been given a little bit of extra information. But I'll just go through them if you don't mind, and then
just go for it, Ian. Just go for it.
All right. Okay. So with the COVID in the background, we need to sort of interpret some of these figures. And so average working days lost to sickness is 8 days at the moment. That's higher than Q1, which was 6.3. And we're forecasting with winter still to come, 9 overall, 9 days. Now, average including non-medical COVID related, that's 9.64 days, up on Q1 of 8.43. I think that does indicate, though, that the COVID-related absences is reducing, which you would expect.
Hopefully, yeah.
However, there's a note there from our people that this element, the either non-medical, has only been recorded this last quarter, so it's a little bit difficult to draw any comparisons with previous periods. So if I go on to the next slide, and I'm going to do top left, top right, bottom right, because I think that makes more sense. So the average number of days lost per employee due to medical absence was 0.46 in September 20, and it's at 0.85 in September 2021. So if you think how many employees we've got, now that relates to the total number of hours. So the total number of hours lost in September 2020 was 2,100, and it's just over 4,000 in September 2021. So if we look at the top right slide now, the average number of days lost per employee being 9.25, which goes back to the first slide. The majority of that, or 2/3 of it, is for long-term absences, and a third is short-term.
That's good to see, and that they've actually got long-term absences explained here, because that's always been my thing. A lot of it could be long-term, and that just tells a story.
Yeah. Now there are some interesting trends with if we look there at the bottom right, the days lost to medical absences at 36,000. We've seen a significant increase in things like stress and anxiety and mental related ailments, often caused sometimes by sort of self-isolation and the sort of side effects of working from home. I mean, we have some staff who come to work and do a good job, but also there's a degree of socialisation in the traditional way of going to work, which is taken away from people, you know, if they live alone for whatever reason. So that does cause a problem. And also just a general, you know, everywhere is more stressful, isn't it? Life is more stressful. So I think that's having an impact.
You're not good.
And And then if we're looking then at days lost to non-COVID, that's about 9,000. So that shows you the sort of split there.
Yeah.
And that's again about care of dependence, self-isolation, those sorts of things as well, which we're still getting. Although we've got a new variant, but as people become more social, then on a daily basis we get individuals, certainly my team, that have got suspected COVID for short periods and need to get tested. So it's still, and as people get more active, I'm sure that will increase again. So that's HR. That's the HR related slides. You can, please feel free to ask questions, but I probably won't be able to answer them. But we can always find an answer if I'm not. There's a lot of management going on with this. Don't think we just, we get daily reports about all our staff, and if we see things which show that they're above what their sickness quota should be, or we see some sort of pattern developing, then we do try and work with individuals, and line managers will interact with their staff closely and try and help them. So there's a lot of work goes on in the background.
And I think, to be fair to Derby Homes, I think if these figures were, there's organisations out there who would just love to have these figures. And for us, we're saying it's high in certain areas, but I think there's a lot of companies who would be proud to have these figures. Yeah,
and I think as as senior management, we've tried to help staff through this difficult time by having flexible ways of working, and which we're returning to, in fact, now.
So that's good. Yeah. Any questions? I can't see any hands up. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just mention, Chair, in terms of the reports then for Q2, just a reminder, you have the words of covering report that came through in your papers.
Yeah.
Also, you've got Appendix 1, which is the performance report that comes off our Doris management system, and also Appendix 2. Now, at Q2, we will look at our sort of performance measures, any that need sort of changing. For instance, that some that may be too challenging and we've been too ambitious with our targets in the year, and some that we may want to change, we're not ambitious enough. So what you have there on page 2 of the covering report, the section mid-year review, just highlights some of the sort of changes, and there's not a lot. There's just a few handful of measures that are being tweaked. So those changes affect satisfaction and complaints, and they're just rationalising really those measures. So in the appendix 2, it gives you a rationale of which measures are being tweaked and the reason why. So there may be some that are done in terms of bring them into line with our house mark sort of percentile, or others that are being sort of rationalised, like the complaints and the satisfaction ones. So that covers that, and obviously from here those measures do go to strategic planning board that Derby City Council and Derby Homes are at, and they're approved there. So just to mention that those are the only changes we're proposing for Q2.
Yeah, and I think if the appendices are quite detailed, as we said earlier on when I challenged them. There's a lot of good explanations in there as well in both appendices. So yeah, the information is there. Lucy?
Thank you. And I've got a question on one of those. It comes up in the report at 4.3.2 on page 14. And the proposal is to reduce the target to align it with the top quartile. And I just, it's the expectation is that the targets are reasonable but stretched. And I just don't know why, when we've been achieving satisfaction with ESB cases, which were really good in the response, why are we reducing the target to rather than making it a stretched target still? What's the argument for that?
It's a fair point.
Sorry, if I just initially do, and obviously colleagues can give more detail on this. So in the appendix, what it says for that measure is that we're trying to align to top quartile. So the top quartile is 91.9%, so it's 92%. And obviously, in terms of sort of focusing resources to try and be excellent, i.e. sort of match top quartile for Housemarque, is a fairly reasonable sort of aim to have. I understand your point in terms of reducing, but that was the rationale. And this is the area for Claire Mulbarney and for Lorraine and the team. But I'm sure colleagues may have an opinion or a comment on that.
No, it's fine. Thanks, Lucy.
I think it does need more explanation. In that, ASB was the top issue in I think it's the next item for tenants, and to say that this is a significant issue for tenants, but yes, we're going to reduce our target below what we're currently achieving, just so that we can be aligned with the top quartile of somebody else's achievement, which is not what our tenants are wanting. It doesn't. I don't follow the logic in that. And
the Housemarque top quartile is the top performing element, so you're really sort of comparing yourself with excellence. And we frequently.
But we're there. We're there in the top quartile.
Yeah. So 91.9% or 92% is the threshold for the top quartile. So in performance terms, that's the sort of explanation we can give, but obviously the service can give further details in terms of the operational reasons why we're tweaking that, and we can certainly take that away and provide further information as this goes through the process.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Kaz, do you want to stop screen sharing now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kaz, as always.
Oh.
A lot more interesting these days than it used to be. And a bit more informative as well, I would suggest. Right, moving on to page 47, the operational board forward plan. Anybody? I think there's much to say from that, really. Has anybody got any questions on that? Obviously, it'll gets looked at, maybe tweaked, but that's the plan as it stands at the minute. Are we all happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Right, the next one. We've done it's the customer voice and their Homefinder report and recommendations. And I think there's probably Tony.
Just
You got
You're on
your
mute, Tony.
muted again, Tony. You're on mute.
sorry, I've clicked it twice this time. Did anybody raise any questions under B1 under B under A1?
Sorry, Dad. Sorry, I haven't got. I'm not aware of any questions.
I haven't seen any.
No, there's no supplementary questions. No.
No.
Sorry, Tony. No, there was none. Right, customer voice. I believe there's various speakers. Is there, or just the one?
Well, there's me, Bob, and also Cindy, who's going to read the bits of report out, because you don't want a whole report, because otherwise we'll be here all night, won't we?
No. So what is? Does anybody know Shirley? And probably lots of new faces for some people.
Introduce yourself, Bob. Okay. I'm Shirley Green from Customer Voice and the chair of our team. First of all, I'd like to thank Laurie for joining Derby Homes and also being thrown in the deep end to help us at Customer Voice, and she's done a grand job. Okay. I haven't seen all of you for a very long time, but Customer Voice have not stopped being busy and active with getting the report done. And they've been very active with it. And I haven't had a lot to do with this because of health issues. And with them interviewing the staff as well. I thought they were doing a grand job when I came back to it, obviously. So I left them to it, and Cindy was doing the report and writing the report out. So I'm going to let her do that because she's done an excellent job with all the team. And I thought I'd leave her to it. and let her carry on with it. So she's going to read the report out for you. Okay.
All right. Okay, Cindy, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi. I hope one of your admin team may be able to tell me that there are two of me.
In what respect?
There appears to be, yes.
Yeah, I
there's
noticed
one-
that. There are
there's
two of
one where
you.
you're
Yeah,
on
that's special,
screen.
Cindy. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
We're not going.
Because my trusted home computer does one thing and my tablet lets me speak to you. So hopefully I should be able to screen share in a minute. So Shirley, as she said, is our chair, and I'm just going to briefly go through the process that we always go through, and then tell you some of the main recommendations that came out of our findings. So we send off a SNAP survey to Derby Homes residents who have given their permission for us to consult with them. So that isn't all Derby Homes residents. It is the people who have agreed to chat to us and answer questions. It may be a virtual panel, it may be customer voice, it may be the DACP group, or it may be tenants who are interested in getting involved in the community, resident associations and things like that. So we send off to them, we ask them what they think are the issues that they want to address, and they come back and they give us their and we take their findings and we work generally on that process. What came back is quite interesting because you brought it up today, is ASB. Because of COVID and because of the limitations that we were given as tenants and members of the public and the pandemic and reaching out and having face-to-face contact with anybody, because this started in January, our research started in January, we were unable to do it, but we agreed that it needed to be addressed. So I don't know whether people have seen, but we did do a very small mini project with ASB, which informed people of what it was in terms of how the council approach it and in terms of how Derby Homes approach it, what support you can get, how it can be addressed, numbers to contact, what actually is ASB, because that's confusion in itself, and what isn't. And that went out, I believe, in the last newsletter. It's been online, it's been approved. So we tackled that straight away while we were looking at the next project, which is the one that I'm going to tell you about, which is the Homefinder one. So we looked at Homefinder, we discussed it. The research went in numerous ways. So we obviously discussed it with staff. That would include everybody from Derby Homes, the housing allocations team, the homelessness team, the rest team, the housing options access team. We looked at the policies, which was the allocations and the discretionary policy around Homefinder. So let's be clear on this. There are two sections to Homefinder. First of all, it's an operational system. It's a computer. We can't discuss a computer.
No,
and so it has its limitations, as all computers do, as you'll find. That's why there's two of me. My computer has its own limitations too. So it's an operation system. So we looked at that and what scope we had in changing it, because other housing associations use the same thing. Some people do, some people don't. And within that, what improvements we could make. And then we looked at when you go beyond the computering system, so customer service, allocations, extenuating circumstances and things like that, and how we could improve that input and output. And the whole time, as usual, customer voice are looking for the best quality of service, the best value for money, and the best outcome to improve all of the things that we've been discussing so far tonight that I've been listening to. So after the initial survey, there were three real trends that came out of it. that I really wanted to pick up on. So the first one was a massive confusion for customers over the banding system that goes on. So when a customer first makes an application, they are automated system. So Homefinder as a computer will put you in, gets told that they're a priority, but they don't get housed for a long period of time, and people who are in corporate get housed. So we looked at jargon and the way it's used and the way that customers receive it. So why am I not a priority if I've been on the list for 6 months, for example? And we know all of the things because we've just heard from the previous people who've spoken that there aren't enough houses out there, and we're working on things like that. But even so, so that was, the wording was a confusing thing when people got banded. The other problems that we found were a trend were the actual advertising of property within the Homefinder system. And the last one was access to information. So the quality of information, this could be in an advert, or it could be if you had a further query or something like that. So they were the things that our recommendations are basically based upon. Improving the way people access the application in the first place. So looking at things like mobility, disability, sight, hearing, those kind of things. Are all of those things available on the website? Does the audio work? Does the visual work? Does the Zoom work? Can I use this device? Will this phone work? Will an iPhone work? I've only got a basic phone. I can't get on the internet, and such like that. So we addressed all of those kind of things, and we've made recommendations for that. The adverts were very, actually, I'll talk about adverts in a minute. So the access to information was around the immediate access to information, but also around if you had any further queries. So let's say you needed a walk-in shower and not a shower above your bath. Was that information available? And if it wasn't, do I need to make a phone call? Who do I ring? Where's the helpline? Who is going to tell me? And in one of the case studies that we followed, somebody had to make 4 phone calls to get that information. That's a waste of Derby Homes time. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of customer time. And if that question wasn't asked, it could be that they chose to view that property because other than that, they wanted it. That would involve the allocations team and the verifications team and everybody else. And it would work out that the bath with the shower above it wasn't suitable. They would reject the property. And again, talking about waste of time and trying to make things as efficient as possible. So they were the kind of things that we're reviewing. Is that all clear so far?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not rambling. So going on to the adverts, and this will make it a bit clearer for you. If I can now possibly try and use both of my computers at the same time, I'm going to try and share my screen. If I know how to do it. Just bear with me, because this might be interesting or it might not.
Oh, we'll see your emails or something.
For anybody?
No.
I'll just see if this works. Oh.
Oh, clever devil.
Oh, look at me. Right, you should see that. Can you see that?
Yes, 1-bedroom flat, £81.87 a week. That's the one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so this will make it a little bit clearer for you. So on the left is what we discovered when we looked at adverts. That's the information sharing. That is a real life advert that we took off the website. So when an applicant comes on, that's what they see.
Right.
Okay, so on the left, no image, no postcode. Yep, can you all see that?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we can.
Yeah, can see it.
Okay, and on the right is our recommendations for how to just improve that basic information to stop those phone calls from coming through, to stop that unnecessary intervention, if you like, because it can't be done unless the computer system puts it in there, but a person has to put it in there. So include your postcode, obviously. If you're out of the area or you're moving to a new area, you want to be able to Google it quickly. Have a photo there, so that it just makes the environment, you're aware of the environment and what you're walking into. You know it's going to be a row of flats. The housing logo, there are 12 partners in Derby Homes, and then 12 other housing associations. And some people, whether we like it or not, whether you encourage it or not to go with any housing association, some people will say, I only want to be with Derby Homes. I only want to be with Derwent Living. So it will stop that question, who's the provider? And then down the bottom, you can see the extra icons. I'm not going anywhere without my dog. I'm not going anywhere without my cat, my hamster. Some properties haven't got a pet allowance, communal living, and so on and so forth. So looking at those things and just including it would stop at all of that kind of investigation. And if I go down to this, so that's the summary page you just saw. And this, when you click on that, this is what you get. So again, no image, this is a real life one. And then the description, as it reads, is about income and benefits and restrictions and nothing much that sells that property by any means. Our example, again, as given in our recommendations, would add the pictures, would add the logos, would add the extra things about the pets and so on and so forth. But instead of all that jargon about the benefits that could be put on a general page, a breakdown of what you're actually getting for your money, what your rent includes, and a positive about the property. So it would be giving a much more wider idea about where you're moving into. It would also involve your tax band, your decorating scheme, your communal areas, and so on and so forth.
Cindy, may I say that that's probably a piece of information that's probably we've all been wanting to see for some time deep down. You know, the rent starts off at that, but some people may be put off with the total cost of the rent. So having that information, I think, is very useful, particularly on the rent side.
Yeah, absolutely. And from our feedback, so from our research, what we found was that some people really objected to the rent because they had no white goods and wouldn't have gone for that property if they knew they were paying for it.
Yeah.
You know, and some people brought into a decorating scheme that they've never used, but they've always paid for, and so on and so forth. So having that option at the start and understanding what the property involves, there is a breakdown in the report, so I won't bother to go through it. But yeah, having that information there will give the customer the informed voice of saying, yeah, I want that property, I don't want that property. But also it will give Derby Homes such a freedom that it's something like 100 phone calls a day. 100 phone calls a day, and they're counting 80% of them are the allocations team and the verifications team, the people who verify it, are around banding and further information. Well, so you imagine if you put that in an advert, you preempted the phone calls. So our recommendations are basically around that. So the jargon, explain it. The advert, make them as positive and as informed as possible. There are smaller things that are in the report that.
Well, they can see them in the annexes, so that's good. Yeah.
But the main things are that, and I will say, on a positive from our side, because, like I say, we've been doing this from January, and because we've done most of it on Teams like this, and we've done most of it virtually. we've been able to test this system ourselves. We've been able to follow case studies. We've been able to get people back in to the room, not virtually in the room, to be able to say, you know, well, we found this out, is that true? And a lot of these recommendations are already in place now.
Stop me there, Cindy.
Already agreed them. What has been able to be in scope has already been agreed. So a lot of it is ongoing. Go on,
Jim's
sorry.
got a question. I think Jim's got a question for you.
I don't think it's a question. I think it's more support that,
All right. Yeah.
you know, the fact of, you know, as the head of service for part of my service is Homefinder. Absolutely. I appreciate all of the things that you've recommended. And for me, the detail that you've suggested on the adverts will absolutely help us in all the ways that you've said around avoidable contact and a better service for our customers. But one of the things it should hopefully do as well is try to reduce our refusal rate. So we have quite a high refusal rate for people who go out and look at the property and turn it down. And that's a big piece of work that I've asked Jenny Watson to look at for next year. And in fact, we were talking about it today at SMT. My SMT colleagues will back me up on that. You know, we need to better understand why our customers are, because what we mustn't forget is that Homefinder is a choice-based letting system. Yeah. So it's all about the customer making a choice to bid for that property. So we do need to make sure there's enough information for them to make an informed choice. But also as well, you know, with the allocations policy, you know, if they go out and refuse it and they refuse 2, they're not going to get any more offers. So, you know, are we making that a difficult situation for them? And then the negative impact for us, if they do go and refuse, it has a knock-on effect for our void relet time that we talked about earlier. So, you know, I wholeheartedly support the recommendations and thank you for being so thorough in challenging my service area.
Good on you, Cindy. And I think the summary for me is more is less. The more information you give on the advert, the less chance is the customer's going to have to make a contact.
Yeah, and I think it's key as well that what we mustn't forget here is that, you know, we can absolutely support the recommendations that the team have put forward to us, but we do have to take those away and try and work with our key partners because not all the properties are ours. No. And we have a very difficult time sometimes with our RPs, registered providers, and they don't always agree with what we want them to do. And, you know, an example of that is that, you know, we expect them to put 90% of their stock through Homefinder. That's something they don't want to do. And we constantly battle with them. And we're very lucky we've got a cabinet member in Councillor Roy Webb who fully supports that we should be making them put that amount of stock through. So I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I'm saying that for Derby Homes things, we will absolutely go forward with it. But for some of our partners, it's not as such as an easy ride. But I know Jenny's got it as an update at the Homefinder forum group for it to be an onward move forward with the agenda items of these recommendations.
And I think 2.4 is good because it's saying come back in 6 months. And I'm interested to see. And I know that Derby Homes will do its best to implement these recommendations. So I think without, you know, there's a lot of detail in the annexes. And I'm going to make the assumption that people have read the report fully because there's a lot of hard work gone into this report. And I thank the team for doing that.
Absolutely.
And I know how much time is, you know, I've been on the customer voice side of things before. And I just think until you read this report, you just can't appreciate how much work has gone into it. So, you know, I think reviewing the hard work that's been done is fair. Lucy, well, if you don't mind, Cindy, I think I'll just take any questions and we'll move on, if that's okay, because the annex is there and you've given us the key recommendations. Lucy.
Yeah, I just say, Cindy, Shirley, the rest of the team, I think this is a brilliant piece of work. I've said a little bit more in the chat, but
I've seen that, Lucy, yeah.
I seem to have frozen as well. Hopefully you heard that. But I just had one question. In terms of the asking, trying to get more information, did you talk to people about having an on-screen assistant? Because sometimes, you know, you go onto a website and there's this little type in texty thing, which is sometimes automated and is sometimes connecting to a real person. Was that something that people talked about? Is that something that might be useful? And if it could be useful, is it something that could be incorporated?
So we did actually talk about it. It's quite interesting because we did talk about it, but what we'd found is what you already have, and obviously because it's a technical thing, it's not a person thing. What you already had wasn't working. So we actually have 2 people who are visually impaired, one more than the other, on our team, and we were allowed to do test runs. So we're allowed to make up an application, and they couldn't even Zoom or use the audio throughout the process. So that was more important, that now it's currently not working and we need to fix that. So in our recommendations, it was fix the problem. We can make it better. But the problem is now, and it's really important because people are making those applications now. So that's why I'm saying some of the things were already put in place as we were going, because they were immediate issues. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that, it could be something. They're not in our recommendations because we're more concerned that the current thing didn't work with all devices.
If I can I just chip in there as well, Chair? I absolutely agree. It'd be fantastic, Lucy, if we could have a sort of a wiki type little person that pops up to be able to assist, online, and that's something we do look at. But additionally, I think to add to that is that Homefinder is a choice-based letting system, which is an IT tool, as Cindy's referred to earlier, and it's a self-service system. But we mustn't forget that there's 5.5 people who sit behind that. So there's 5.5 humans who sit behind that daily, who are the Homefinder and registration team, who are absolutely at the beck and call of any of our customers. Yes, they have to do some verification checks to ensure that the needs that have been awarded are the right needs, and that person is entitled to be allocated that property. But we have moved from a point of some years ago where it was 9 months to 12 months to get your Homefinder application verified and live. We actually operate live now. And so we have gone miles forward on that. So customers can register and they can be instantly verified at that point. And then the human steps in and does the final verification at point of offer, because there's no point in us wasting all that resource and time in verifying at point of application if you're probably never going to be offered a property. Because if you've only got one housing need and you're in general needs, we were very clear in the allocations policy when we rewrote it. Social housing probably won't answer your problem, because there's just not enough turnover or stock. So we mustn't lose sight, and hopefully those 2 people who were testing and creating dummy accounts, that should have been the point of call if they were struggling, that they can have access to a person on the phone. We've got IT systems now where you can use your phone to verify documents. I can never remember the name of it. It's a something pad or something where the team have got access to it. So there's loads of options we've got.
Okay, so looking at the recommendations, and I think I know the answer to this, but members of the operational board, are you fully supporting all the recommendations?
Yeah, a good report.
Yep, and I think it's an excellent report. As I said before, hard work done by many in the team, and we're all agreed today, and that's good. And all your tenants support you, so there you go. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to. Thanks, Jim. We'll move on to A4 Estates Pride. Who's doing this one?
You're on mute, still, Ian.
Yes, sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Ian. It's all right.
Yep, must have been atmospheric conditions there. Okay, right. This is the report that comes to you this time every year, and it's which informs you and seeks approval from you for a proposed programme for the Estates Pride programme this year, for this time for 22-23. Yeah. I'm taking you've all read the report, so I'm just going to summarise it. As you'll know, Derby Homes allocates funds each year to deliver improvement works that are identified by tenants, councillors, local housing staff and other partners. And the works we're talking about here is fencing, lighting, landscaping, improving parking and access, that sort of thing. So normally this year the budget will be split 250,000 for capital works and £500,000 for revenue works. So what we're going to be seeking from you here is approval to the way we for our proposals to how we spend this money. So I'll just briefly summarise where we're coming from here. So on the capital works side, which is item 4.4 in the report, where we have a budget of £250,000. We've listed there areas where we'd like to spend the money, but of course we've only got a budget of £250,000. There's one here that keeps coming back, which is some additional parking at the front of Rivermead, but as we've already improved the parking to the rear of Rivermead, and it seems to solve most of the problems, it's not too much of a priority for us.
Right.
There are 3 other sites there, Oakley and Watermeadow. Those 2 are being worked up now and going for planning, and the one at Kensal Rise rather, again, that's still got to be finalised there as well. Where we are getting a lot of demand and is to create hard standing citywide, which helps remove vehicles off the road and improves the street scene. That sort of thing. And if you look in at the report, does say demand outstrips supply in Chadderton and Stockbrook. There's a 2 to 3 year wait, and this year progress has been really good. We will deliver all the budget this year, so we've got a couple of good contractors now delivering this work, so that sort of work. So the recommendation on this side is to deliver a hard standing programme.
Yeah, and I think
and we've increased that. Sorry, we've increased that, Bob, this year up to 85 number. Sorry.
Yeah. I was going to say, Lucy would probably disagree with me, but I think the hard standing scenario, you're right. It's the car parking on the street is not good, and having a hard standing as somebody who moved into probably the hard standing, it's invaluable. And I think, yes, there is a need out there. I know what you're saying, Lucy, you want cars off the road and people sharing, but I think it's I think it's a demand that's been driven by, it's demand driven, I think.
Well, people have a lot more cars than, if you look at any street scene or layout of estates that were built in, I mean, a lot of our stock is from the 20s and 30s. And even though if you go up to Mackworth, which are the no fines estate there in the 50s, there was a vision there where there's a lot fewer cars around. In fact, some houses haven't even got roadways in front of them, some of them. So there's a lot of pressure on parking space, and the roads are quite narrow, so a lot of issues there. So,
well, let's give you an opportunity at some stage to put in charging facilities for electric vehicles.
Well, Tony, if you just give us a moment to move on to the revenue side, there's there's a little environmental initiative, a sort of seed funding item there, which might, help, with that as well. What I will say is all the new builds will have charging points in them that we're putting up at the moment. Anyway, so on the revenue side, where we have a budget of 500,000, this out of this £100,000, as previously approved by Ops Board, £100,000 this is used to contribute to the expanded estates response officer service rather, and these people go around our estates and ensure that hang on a second, sorry. They help resolve neighbourhood disputes, support the ASB team, work on landscaping issues, that sort of thing, trip hazards, pick all sorts of things up. So we're already committed to spending that. And this 50,000 has already been allocated to an expanded neighbourhood management scheme. But on top of that, £100,000 on the table on page 3 highlights there's £100,000 there for small scale works. These come through all year round from residents, estates officers, that sort of thing. And they can be small amounts of work, little bits of fencing, enclosures, seats, all manner of things. I mean, I think I must have seen a dozen of these in the past month.
Good.
£150,000 comes out of our well-managed highways surveys. These are small-scale resurfacing works. In fact, a lot of the work this year, we've done a lot of work this year on the capital side, resurfacing car parking areas, etc. I've driven around the city this past 2 months and seen a lot of that sort of work being done. It's been quite a success. On top of that, we'd like to allocate £50,000 as a small budget to support ideas around estate-based environmental initiatives. We'd like to progress those forward. And then finally, we would like to expand, because of the success other programs, we'd like to an additional space response officer. What we found is that with the well-managed highways and the estate inspections, the number of trip hazards we've been getting and insurance claims has reduced significantly. So it's been a real benefit to the business, and it's improved the street and environmental scene around our blocks as well. So that's how we like to divvy up the £500,000 there is allocate is described. And then finally on item 5.3, because of the success of the capital side of the well-managed highways, what we're going to do is include an extra £100,000 a year for capital improvements on paving and surfacing, because there's a lot of work to go out there. So anyway, that's all detailed there. I'm sure you've all read the report, and just wanted to highlight the main areas because the purpose of this report is for you to approve the allocation of the funding, yes, rather than as I say, there's plenty of opportunity there for residents, councillors to contribute to how we spend that money. The money's allocated into pots, and how we spend it is down to individuals really, or groups of individuals.
Lucy?
Thank you. And I just had 3 points I wanted to make. One is regards Rivermead House, that if the planning approval was simply for the parking changes at the front, you need to watch out that doesn't lapse after 3 years, because it's probably only got 3 years life in it. If it was part of a larger scheme, then it'll sit there forever. But just something to bear in mind. And it may be that Rivermead would be a good place to start with a shared car scheme, and then it would never be needed because we could spend some capital on not doing a scheme like that, but buying a few cars that everybody could borrow, so they don't need to pay for and borrow, hire at short notice.
I think we have got one or two new build schemes that as well, that where we're thinking that we could, a car share scheme or something. It might be an idea to introduce one or two of those. So we'll keep talking on that, because it could be
it could be particularly good for older people who don't want the hassle of looking after their own property, their own car, and not using it that much.
Breton Avenue being a good point you've raised that. So sorry.
Now the other two things are on the environmental initiatives, and I think this is really exciting, and I'd love to have a whole range of ideas coming through on this. So if anybody else has got ideas, then share them tonight and somebody can put them on a list. My two are to ask how much of Derby Homes lighting is not yet LEDs, because the council has been changing street lighting onto LED, which has a payback of something like only 2 years in most cases, and then you've got your money back and saving into the future. So there may be scope for things like that. And the second thing is where people have fences, if they're maybe fencing to keep dogs in, but if it's a fairly large dog, you could have a hole in the fence that's big enough for the hedgehogs to go through. And it then extends the areas that hedgehogs can roam and gives our wildlife a bigger opportunity. So that's just an idea that people might like to explore. People like hedgehogs.
Yeah. I've got one for you, Ian. The new estates response officer.
Yes.
Yeah, I probably know the answer to this one, but I just can't remember. Where is the estates officer going to be based, or is it they're going to be central?
I don't think they'll be based anywhere particularly. I think they'll have patches, I imagine, and they'll be city-wide. So
that's what I was hoping you'd
say. Yes, absolutely. No, we're not going to tie any of them down. So
no, because you don't want anybody sort of in a particular area to sort of lay claim on.
No.
It's city-wide.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
okay. Yeah, Luke, you finished, Lucy, with questions? Yep, Michael.
Yeah, just going back to the hard standings, anybody who does request a new hard standing, one of the conditions as having that installed is that they have a service charge associated with that. It's £4 or £5 a week. So it's effectively self-financing over a very, very long period of time. But it pays for itself over a long period of time.
Well, as somebody who pays that, Michael, I'm quite happy to pay, because I think it's great. It's a car off the road and it's safe. It's well worth the money. Right, so operational board, are we prepared to go for the recommendations as outlined?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chair.
And the next one is, rechargeable repairs policy review. That'll be you, Steve.
Oh, no, it's me, Tracy.
Is it you? Oh, right.
It is, yes.
Right.
So it's just, I mean, obviously we've already got an existing rechargeable repairs policy. So this has just been a review of that policy. And we have had a look at it, and the policy has been shared with a couple of other heads of service, like Steve and Michael, because they obviously want to know about these things, about depths that we have to recover. And obviously Steve wants to know about all the repairs that we're putting on and why we're putting these on and whether or not they're being recharged. So we have talked to all the heads of service. We have been out to customers as well through the virtual panel, and so copy one of the appendices, you will see the questions that were asked, and we've taken on board some of the comments made by our customers, and they've also helped we've looked at them comments and we've adjusted the policy accordingly to incorporate some of the ideas that they came up with. So I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to have a read of it, but what we're going to be doing as well is in future, we're not going to be looking to seek the cost of recovering the repair charge from a customer before we will do the work. So basically what we'll be doing, if we pick up any work that we need to be doing, we will be doing the repair first and we'll be collecting the money afterwards. Now, we think this is a fair way to do it because some of our customers haven't got that amount of money to put things right, and we will be setting pay arrangements for them customers so they can pay money back to us in instalments. So that should be helping. That should help us recover some extra money for the rechargeable repair debts that we raise. There's also what we want to make sure is that our officers are well informed about the rechargeable repairs, and to make sure that when they are speaking to customers and we're seeing signs of damage, that they're given the opportunity to the customer to put the damage right themselves first of all. Where they're not able to do that and we have to raise a rechargeable repair, and we're making sure that the customers know exactly why it's being recharged and that they have got the opportunity to pay in instalments. We're also making sure that the debt isn't raised until the work is actually completed. There's also an area in there as well where the customers will have they will be able to kind of appeal against any recharges that are raised if they're not happy with the charges that have been set against them. There's one other change.
Tracy, can I just ask you a question, Tracy? On the where they do the work is carried out by the tenant themselves, does someone from Derby Homes go along to verify that work is acceptable standard? That's good.
So what we'll do is when we identify a problem, we'll open a case and we'll kind of work with the tenant to see whether or not they're going to repair that themselves. But obviously any repair that they do, we will check that and make sure it's done to a reasonable standard.
I would expect nothing less, but yeah, it's good to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
There is one area, I mean, obviously in relation to rechargeable repairs, we have got repairs that are raised after people have left the property.
Yeah.
And what we're basically doing there is now we're relying on the surveyors to actually raise the rechargeable repairs. That's always happened, but there has been a little bit of inconsistency before, because sometimes some of our junior members of staff have been obviously visit people before they leave. And sometimes customers, if they haven't picked something up, the customers are kind of thinking, well, that's fine, I can leave it the way it is. And obviously when you kind of go to a property where it's full of furniture, people are living in it, it can look very different when somebody leaves it.
Well, that's right, holes and walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, so so we think it's fair really, and it's going to be more consistent that that's left for the surveyors to make the decision on it, so it doesn't conflict with information that our officers may have given if they visited. However, we will still be visiting properties before people leave if people want us to do that. But when we do get termination of tenancies in from our tenants, we are making it quite clear on how we expect them properties to be handed back to us. And if they're not handed back in that way, that they could end up having to pay us some money back for putting any damage right. And
before we move on, guys, it's 8 o'clock, and those of you who've been around for a while and these boards will know that we need to waive standing orders. In other words, permission to carry on after 8 o'clock. Is that okay?
Yep.
That's fine. Thank you. What I was going to just ask a question there, Trey, it's gone. Yeah, I mean, the policy that visiting, somebody puts notice to vacate or moving, it's not policy to go and visit that home and look at the property, is it? Have I got that wrong?
No, I mean, what happens is when people leave the property, it's quite clear in our tenancy agreement, the standard that they should leave the property and what we expect from them. And as soon as we get a notice in to terminate, so if you decided, Bob, that you wanted to terminate your tenancy, as soon as we get that notice from you, you will get a letter from us telling you what we expect you to do in relation to handing the keys in and how we expect you to leave the property. It also tells you about, obviously, if you leave the property, well, you can actually end up with some money being paid back to you through the Golden Goodbye scheme as well. So there's obviously, we want you to leave it this way, and if you do leave it that way, you can actually get some money back from us.
Because I'm a big fan, and you probably had me say this before, Tracy, and some people will. I'm a big fan. I think if it was practical, I think we should go and see the tenant once they put the notice in within, say, a month, and just to see what the property's like. And you'll know that's going to create work and stuff like that. But I just think it's just my own personal thing,
Bob, we did used to carry out pre-vacancy inspections, and I think it's something we probably should revisit. Obviously, COVID's probably affected that to some degree, but some of the issues with pre-vacant inspections, though, is inspecting a property that's fully furnished with everything in there.
Yeah, I get
it's sometimes quite difficult because the sofa's moved and there's an hole in the wall, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it's not always easy as it sounds, but I think we'd all agree that pre-vacant inspections should have their place. So I think it's something we should, from what you said, really, is sort of relook at it again.
Because I know that, my days of, here we go, Bob's telling his war stories, but when I was in the Air Force, that was always the way things were done, and it was good, it kept, it just, in general state of repair of things. But you're right, I've known people genuinely who have moved a settee to hide a big hole in the wall. I mean, that's what they do,
Yeah, and sometimes,
So
sometimes with the pre-vacancies, we were finding that the people who kind of had something to hide weren't letting us in anyway. So some of the repairs picked up after somebody had left was generally from the properties that we've never been in because we couldn't get access. To people who were kind of leaving them really well and probably, being eligible for things like the Golden Goodbye, we're quite happy to have us round because it was perfect. It's the way we want things to happen. I would say that recently we haven't been doing pre-vacancy inspections.
I know.
And as a result, I haven't seen any difference in
Have you not? No.
any difference at all. So there hasn't been an increase in the rechargeable repairs that have been raised after a tenant's left. So it's not really made any difference. In fact, I think it's gone down. So I don't know whether that's because the information that we're sending out is a little bit better to customers.
Well,
don't know.
It's always that, Yeah, I just think a responsible landlord, but perhaps as Steve said, maybe revisit it. But as I say, it's long term. It's just one of those things, you'll never cover it 100%, but it may reduce. I don't know. Just food for thought. All right, operational board, the recommendations. You've had what Tracy and Steve have said. Lucy?
Yeah, two things. One is something I've raised at other times, which is people who contact me and being disappointed that they've had to take down things that they've put up. So it might be shelves or it might be flooring.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're going to say,
And by taking it down, they've left damage behind so that the wallpaper went round the shelves, but they've taken the shelves away, so therefore there's a gap in the wallpaper, that sort of thing. And whether this is going to solve that problem.
I would say, Lucy, that more and more, if we can leave things in, we will, particularly floor coverings and things like that. In the old days, every floor covering was taken out. And that's just ridiculous. If you think, I've got a lovely carpet in there, why would you do that? So more and more, if we physically can, we will do. Often it will be down to health and safety reasons or other reasons that we might want to take something out that we have to. But generally speaking, we don't just take things out for the sake of it.
And that needs to be understood somewhere between the guidance that the tenant's getting in the letter and that possible additional inspection. So I'm not going to solve it at this meeting, but just something to explore. And the other question I had was if somebody has household contents insurance, that may cover things like, damage to wash basins or to fixed lighting and things like this. How is it clear as to how that would be managed? So, can they get somebody else to come in to do that work, or do you use the insurance to pay for Derby Homes to do the work if they've got their own personal insurance?
I suppose it's not covered, but I suppose it's never come up before. But I guess if we were dealing with a customer who has got, they've damaged a wash and basin, it's their responsibility to put right. Again, either if they can ask us to do it, and we will recharge, and then they can recover the cost from the insurance company. or vice versa. If the insurance company are willing to pay on a quote and they get it done themselves, they've got that choice as well. They might get it cheaper.
Okay, so you think it'll work within the the proposals?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That seems
The only
fair.
thing we'll do is we'll check work after if it's not done by us. Particularly if it's something where it's electrical or gas, we'll want to see the certification of the engineer that they've employed to do it. So we will be making sure stuff, but within reason, providing we're confident the work could be done to a reasonable standard. You know, there's no particular reason why not, particularly if they're going through insurance, then that wouldn't make a difference negatively to us, I don't think, Tracy, would it?
No, I mean, and I think to be fair, a lot of the damage that we pick up, you know, our customers don't feel confident doing it themselves. They're not insured and they don't feel confident doing it themselves, and they'll ask us to do it. And you know, that's the way we'll go forward with it.
Okay, board. I have no more questions. Then I'm happy to recommendations. Are you happy to support this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Right, moving on. Children and young people, I believe.
Hello, you've got me. I'm not Holly Johnson, obviously.
Well,
Holly's,
I gathered that, Paul.
You don't say.
Holly at the moment is she's heartbroken that her rescheduled Il Divo concert has again been postponed. So I'd already planned to fill in for her, but she's gutted. So anyway, I'll try and give you a very brief version of her report. Okay, this is the Derby Homes Children and Young People Strategy 2021 to 24. It replaces the previous strategy, which is in Appendix 4. It's a bit of a completely new strategy. It's not just, you know, minor changes. There's some quite big sweeping changes in there. The main points that are considered in this are obviously the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, including the impact on the mental health of children and young people. We've had a lot of, you know, seen a lot of that over the last year. Huge new section on partnership working. Improved sections on jobs and training opportunities, not just from Derby Homes, but from other partners, and then a section on contextualised safeguarding and place-based risk. The recommendation is for the operational board to approve this new strategy. I'll just cover a very brief bits. I'm just going to assume you've all read it. You know, there's a key focus on the mental health aspect of things here, which looks at over the last year. Obviously, there's been a lot of things like missed education and things like that, and an impact on the wider effects of families who've been hit financially by the effects of the pandemic. We did some consultation with Ignite and Connect, our own youth panel, and they brought out again a bit of a focus on skills, but also the opportunity for them to do things that they didn't get to do either in school or in their personal life. So that's, you know, giving us a new focus for that sort of thing. One of the biggest bits is partnership working. I think that comes through a lot. It's, again, if you read through the full thing, it's a whole section now, and in particular it brings out this, you know, the work with the Derby Youth Alliance. So rather than us trying to have the skills in-house to have that expertise, which we don't have, we can go through the Youth Alliance model and reach a whole range of different partners in the city now, who've got expertise in not just sort of one particular area, but you know, lots of other, a whole range of ways we can support children and young people. Another key focus is in employment and skills. I mean, there is a specific example of the fact that members of our Ignite and Connect youth panel automatically get an opportunity to have an interview for an apprenticeship.
Yep.
And there's been a successful one of those recently that's in place. They're in place now. But also we had highlighted from the fact that from our tenancy sustainment team, there's quite a lot of work that they do to refer young people in particular to a range of different partners and projects in the city already. So we've used that to inform this strategy. So basically it's a new strategy. A lot's happened in the last few years. It continues our commitment to young people, and it's got a strengthened focus on partnerships, collaboration, and signposting to other organisations and feed into existing structures in the city. You know, aligning with the councils and the rest of the city's aims for children and young people, rather than trying to do or develop something ourselves.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions for Paul?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on, Lucy.
Yes, please. Yes, just I think it's really nice, and young people just are so important because they become old people in due course if we look after them properly. And on the way in between, they become really useful members of society. There are just 3 places in the report where it just feels as if it's going to date a bit badly, given that it's for 21 to 24. There's the first paragraph under looked after children, where it says we are currently working in partnership, which just needs flavoured that say, from 2021 we're working in partnership or something like that. Under unaccompanied asylum seekers, it says the project is in its early stages, but that needs to be flavoured in a way that still reads right in 2024. Yeah. And similarly, there's in a couple of pages later on, underneath the picture of a group of young people, which doesn't tell you very much, 3rd paragraph down on page 107, it talks about apprentices and saying, but in 2013 we expanded to provide apprenticeships in our repairs and maintenance teams, and I suspect it's that since 2013 we've been doing it, not just for that 1 year. So again, it's just to make sure it feels current and up to date.
Certainly we can get them.
But otherwise, lovely.
Tony?
Yeah, the only thing I picked up on the Derby Homes Youth Panel, Unite and Connect, we have had them come and present to the operations board in the past.
Yeah.
It was most impressive. It would be nice that they think if they've got any issues that they're looking at that could be presented in the future, because there's nothing in the plans.
No, that's fully support that. Yeah. Will you pick that up, Laurie, or?
Yes, I definitely will. Yes, I'm in constant contact with Charlie, who's our part-time youth engagement officer. So she would be so happy to be able to facilitate them to come and speak to board in the future. So I'll definitely pass that on.
Well, last time it was a refreshing change, Tony, wasn't it, to get a different type of presentation?
Yeah, very much so, Bob.
Yeah. And what I'd like to say is, the word partnership is Paul said is through this, but I think that's the way forward now. We can't do it alone. We have to work with partners who've got the expertise, and that's good to see that's reflected through the whole report. Right, then, out of these board members, you've hopefully read the report, you've had the comments. Are we happy to recommend?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that's good, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on. Discretionary allocations policy.
That's me, Chair. So this is a review of, as part of the operational board reviews planned. And so this is the discretionary allocations policy that is aligned to the Derby City Council allocations policy and allows Derby Homes to have discretion when making offers of accommodation out of turn for certain circumstances. The existing policy has been in place since September 2018. The existing policy is still fit for purpose, although on the review it did require some wording changes to align with the reviewed allocations policy 2020-2025, and additionally as well some job title around the processing of requests and the authorisation of them. So the recommendation is for you guys to approve the updated and reviewed discretionary allocations policy. Some of the reasons for the recommendations, well, it really does assist Derby Homes in the ability to offer housing solutions for some of those customers where the usual route through Homefinder wouldn't be achievable. And we talked earlier about Homefinder, and we've talked earlier tonight about demand, and we've talked about flow. And there are certain circumstances where the discretionary allocations policy comes into its own and allows us to tackle individual circumstances and find a route to be rehoused for families and individuals.
Okay.
Any questions?
Well, if you want to see the changes, guys, under page 117 and 18 has got the highlighted changes. It's all nice and tidy for us. Any questions, Tony?
Just one on the page 117, allocations of registered social landlords. You crossed out social, but you've still got the abbreviation of RSL.
RSL. I just couldn't say
Oh, I
that.
apologise.
You're
Just
ahead
a-
of me there, Tony.
just a-
You're ahead of me.
And in the paragraph that follows.
Sorry, Tony. I'll make sure that
But,
gets corrected.
I'm surprised Jim didn't say he did that on purpose.
Well,
You pick it up.
No. I, you know, you can't be perfect all the time, can you? So I like to be picked up occasionally. No,
just
but
to prove I
appreciate
read
that.
it, Jim.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you find it useful. You know, it's a really useful tool for us.
Yeah.
Any
Right,
other questions you'd like me to answer, or
can't
can I
see any
seek
questions.
approval?
Yeah. Seek
Okay.
approval for this report.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brilliant.
It's fine,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
I'll speed things along for you, Chair. Don't worry.
Well, you're a star. The next one is income management strategy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this one's seeking recommendation to adopt the revised income management strategy as drafted in the appendix. There's no major changes from the existing strategy that's been in place for the last couple of years. It's just been updated to reflect latest figures around universal numbers, universal credit numbers, and the revised timelines that it's being rolled out by the DWP, and to reflect that we've got larger amount of arrears now, particularly those with significant arrears above £2,000. The important parts within the appendix are the strategy bullet points and the priority bullet points. Not planning to talk through them at all because, like I say, it is very similar to the existing strategy, but happy to take any comments and seek an approval on the strategy as drafted.
Yeah, I think we'll work on the assumption that people read the reports. So, any questions, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I read the report. Top of page, second paragraph, top of page 24 says, as at September 2021, 40% of our tenants received housing benefit. October 2019, 62%, March 17. We've seemed to have, we've got 2 percentages and 3 dates.
Right.
So before we finally publish it, can we align that? That's all.
That's a fair comment, Lucy.
Yeah, so it reads, as at September 21, which is when I drafted this, 40% of our tenants received housing benefit. October 2019. Oh yeah, I don't know what you're right. It's I don't know whether that means 62% at October 2019 or whether that was at March 17.
Yeah.
You'll sort it, Mike.
That's a drafting error. So thanks for picking that up. The underlying message is that as people move on to universal credit, they're obviously coming off housing benefit. But you're right to pick up. I've got a typo on those dates.
As far as the report goes, any questions in the report?
No.
No. Fine.
Happy to approve it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next one, community action grant. A9.
That's back to me again, I'm afraid.
Oh,
I'll try and go through it as smoothly as I can from homework. Let's help. So this is for the grant funding update for 2020 to 21 and a request for similar grant funding for the period of 21 to 22. Recommendations are to note the funding outcomes for the previous year. Then to also note that the coronavirus pandemic has impacted the delivery of some elements of that grant, but Community Action Derby's work has been pivotal in a lot of Derby's response to the pandemic. And then to approve further grant of £20,000 to Community Action Derby for the period of December 21 to November 22. This is also subject to the approval of Derby City Council. So I'm going to assume you have all read the report as well. But again, I think I would draw your attention to just some of the figures from the previous year's funding. You know,
may I say, the operational board, this is good because we've always said in the past we've never seen outcomes. Here, this time, we've seen some results. Sorry to interrupt you, Paul.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, a lot of numbers if you want them. Again, a lot of this does focus on the work from the hub, which was absolutely critical throughout the lockdown and the whole of the pandemic, and is still running. You know, the numbers of volunteers there, the number of volunteering hours, and the equivalent savings of, you know, almost £1 million in volunteer hours does sort of speak for itself. Then you've got a range of other projects that have sprung off that and supported in conjunction with the hub. The Food for Thought Alliance, I think they've just been in the paper today with some new sort of donation thing in the shopping centre. I can never say the word, the Derby Inn.
Eagle Centre.
The Eagle Centre, yeah. You know, a whole range of things in there of what they've done. So it is proposed that obviously we do renew that grant, and when you see the benefits there, the investment that we're making does seem like it's really good value for money. Not only is it supporting that, which is, you know, they're the lead for the city, they're involved in lots of key strategic groups alongside the council, but it's helping us to fulfil our volunteering offer, which we would also have to resource internally and you know, manage internally, and all that involves if we did it ourselves. You've got the knock-on benefit for tenants, residents, and the wider community. And then I think you've got to give them credit for, you know, being able to be flexible with what they've achieved throughout the last year as well. So there's quite a lot there. I think it's again similar to the children, young people strategy and the Youth Alliance model. It's a move towards sort of like the better together approach. Sort of leaning more into partnership, working with each other to make sure, you know, if things do come up, we can get the best out of what we've invested in. So that's the gist of it, really. If anyone's got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
It's fairly
But it pretty much speaks for itself.
It does. Any questions?
No.
If I could just say, for me on a personal thing, I think my only thing would be, I'm happy to approve this same as the guys, but we like the feedback. You know, it's nice to see what the money's been spent on, and I think that's this time it's been good to look at this report as I did during the week and see there's some figures in it and you can see where it's gone. And I think that's been the problem in the past. We've been given money, well, not given money, but they've had money and we've never seen what it's been spent on. Well, this is a good example of it, and the guys are happy to approve it. And I think that's right and proper.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, grounds maintenance. Why are you laughing, Dennis?
I'll tell you later.
It's that time of year again, and yes. Now I'm going to assume you've read this report.
Well, I have,
and I'll highlight a few. Remember, this goes back 2 years ago when Operations Board approved some additional expenditure to increase the number of employees. We also reported that we're going to invest in some additional plant and equipment, etc., and introduce a closer regime of managing their performance. We came back last year with an update report. Of course, last year was impacted, or the previous year was impacted by COVID, the initial wave of COVID, and so we brought another. And so we said we'd come back to you again this year with a further update. I think some key points to highlight is that in terms of basic performance, in terms of cutting frequency, the times between cuts has reduced. Times between visits on the garden maintenance service has reduced. Generally, the number of complaints has gone down. The quality of management of the team has improved. And I say the main issue, though, has been, and we've alluded to this earlier in this meeting, about retention of staff. 2 years ago, the establishment wasn't what it needed to be; it was well below. And at the start of the 21 growing season, we just about got full establishment. But as the year went on, staff left for other jobs. There was quite a bit of COVID absenteeism. People moving onto the refuse service, they were short of numbers as well. And they've had real difficulty holding onto the team, onto the staff. And it wasn't until, would you believe, right at the end of the season that we managed to get up to 2 with an establishment, I think it is. So that's having a benefit at the moment because they made a really good start to the winter works, to the leaf collections, to the pruning. those sorts of areas. So there's optimism there in terms of the fact that the winter programme will get fully completed and give us a really good start next year should the weather hold out. But it did impact on us during the year, and as I said, it's the same across. There's more jobs than people available, and people leaving. We can't get staffs for trades. People are moving around. Grounds maintenance seems like a good career when they start off, and then all of a sudden they get into it and they leave and do something else. But they are, in fairness to them, they have recruited faster and tried to get staffing levels back up. So I think the key here is, if we can, and if we do in the next growing season, have a true post-COVID environment, and we can get stability in the team, I think there's good grounds to show that we can actually deliver a pretty good service. I mean, and that's the way I'd really like to proceed. From someone that's procured and marketed grounds maintenance services disastrously, might I add. when we got
no
the
comment.
sample of it. Yeah, this is with other housing associations, other RSLs. As I say, I think we've got someone we really can work with, and I think if we get the right labour on the jobs, the impact of the new equipment will be really shown. Because, for example, we are leaving cuttings on the grass at the moment. Now, if you have problems where the frequency is extended, then you lose that impact. So
Absolutely.
Anyway, so there's grounds now. And I'll just add, at the very back of the report, there is a financial section there, which Michael might want to add something to this, but it gives you some ideas about the cost of service and about the proposal to increase service charges by 10% each year.
What?
Any questions, Dennis?
Said that very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. In the last minutes, it talked about trees, that we'd have a report about trees, but there's nothing about trees in this report.
Well, I'm happy to. There's two things here. I was asked about cleaning and trees. What I tried to do was relate what we talked about before with this. I will undertake, if you want a detailed report on trees, I'll put it into my. I'll either do a separate report or put you a detailed feedback in my head of service update next time. There's not a lot to. I haven't really got a lot to report. We've got a good record of what trees we've got. We have a program where we invest in the management of those trees. We a lot of our sites have got a lot of mature trees, so it's a bottomless pit or an endless pit of expenditure we'd find there. So we have to have a pretty good handle on the condition of those trees, and there will always be an issue, but there is a requirement really here for a detailed report on the cleaning service, and I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Right.
I've got some data. Happy to do that.
Okay, Tony.
As Ian and Michael know, this was a very hot topic at the last leaseholders meeting, particularly the 10% increase, when year on year we keep being promised improvements and nothing happens. For all the good reasons that Ian's laid out, you want to keep putting the charges up to leaseholders and residents by 10% each year, and still we're not getting the service. So I think you ought to freeze the increases until you can provide the service. Quite simple.
I do think the service is better this year than it was last year. There is an improvement in the service.
When they come, they do a reasonable job, but they don't come often enough. And as you've said, when they leave long times between grass cutting, the amount of grass that's left, because it's not picked up these days, is a mess.
Yeah, it could be better. Yeah, I mean, I go around a lot of the sites.
When you can show that you can do what you promised last year, then why not increase the price then? You've got a contract now which basically Street Pride lose 5 people according to your report and still charge you the same. Their costs must be less.
No, can I just clarify that how that works? It's an open book recharge on the Street Pride contract. So if the costs are lower because they have lower manpower, then the cost to Derby Homes is lower, and that cost there is the estimated cost of the service for next year, assuming the full establishment. Now, because at the minute the service charge income doesn't recover anywhere near the full cost of the service that's been incurred, even at these reduced staffing levels, in terms of the appropriateness of a service charge, it's more than appropriate to charge those figures. The quality of the service is a totally separate item, and I fully accept that. But I don't think it's correct to align the charges for the service against the performance of the service. What you're effectively asking for is compensation for a lack of service. Now, if that lack of service is as a result of COVID implications following on from last year because of difficulty in recruiting and retaining staff, then there hasn't been any examples where service charges have been waived or anything like that because of COVID related ones. So I think what we're asking for is give Street Pride yet another year of full establishment.
How many years
see what the performance is then.
Well, I would add,
and as you'll be fully aware, the service charge income gets recharged or passed over to Derby Homes, and if we didn't get that 10% increase, that would cost £100,000 a year that we're anticipating in Derby Homes. And you'll be fully aware when we do the budget preparations on next month, that will come straight off Derby Homes' bottom line if we don't get that income passed through to us. I fully accept the service quality standard challenges, but on the income side, I think that the charges are fairly stated.
Lucy?
You'll have a lot of unhappy leaseholders and residents, I suspect.
Again.
Continue, yes, Dennis.
Sorry, could I just add to that? The feedback that we got at the customer voice and the DACP when we mentioned this wasn't that they was happy with the rent charges and the service charges. What they did reiterate is what you've just highlighted there was the quality of the service. They said that the charges are fine and reasonable. What we want to make sure is that Derby Homes delivers the service that they're meant to.
But how many years have we argued this, that the quality of service is not what you keep promising?
I think the quality service, I'm actually surprised that the quality service improved even what it did improve this year, for saying the issue they had with staff. And COVID has had a tremendous impact on trying to run a service across the board. I mean, it is incredible. Virtually every aspect of our operations has been impacted one way or another by COVID. Even if it's even down to supply chain issues, it's been very, very difficult it's been very difficult to maintain a service, and we've struggled manfully all the way through. So, I don't think I would agree. If we had a normal year and when it doesn't show an improvement, then take action. But it's very, very difficult the way it's been. I thought this year would be better than last year, and it hasn't. It's been no better, really.
Well, certainly the figures we were given last year that Sean had presented on how many people you needed looked sensible, and except the previous years you were under-resourced.
And we did hold back. We have held back of the fact because the original proposal was yet for a further 4 people, and there's always no way we can justify that because we need to fully utilise the 32 in the full establishment, and let's get the service on let's work with them. And there are good signs there. Another aspect which I didn't put in the report, which came to light, is the quality of the reporting we get. We get some pretty instant reporting on where they are, how much time they've spent on the schemes, which is helping move the resources around, because earlier in the year they got a mismatch, certainly in terms of the gardening service, on the size of the teams and the commitment. So that's really improved as well. So in terms of resource allocation, we've seen significant improvements there too. So I think, we've got something to work with here.
I agree. I don't think this is going to go away though until we actually see these improvements.
Tony, if I could just add though, I do, honestly, from the perspective of, I mean, the other side of the depot is my team's recruitment at the moment is extremely difficult. We have vacancies in all trades. We have adverts out continually all the time, and that it makes a difference to the service we give when we can't actually replace people that leave or people that retire, people that move on. It has made a difference, COVID, from the point of view, you know, not just people off sick, but actually bringing new people. And I think if you asked any head of service, it's not just repairs or maintenance, it will be Jim's team. It's really difficult at the moment. So I understand your frustration. We've been talking about this for years. I know we have, but genuinely there is an issue that we are finding very difficult to deal with. And at the moment, we're looking at all sorts of different ways to find recruitment, you know, make it easy for ourselves and so on. So I just add that. Not that I'm sticking up for Ian at all. I wouldn't want to do that.
Understand
But,
that.
No, that's never heard of.
The argument is if you can't recruit the people, you shouldn't be charging so much.
Right. Lucy, I'll let you in now, Lucy.
Thank you. I was wanting to talk about that recruitment issue and two angles. Firstly, are we actually advertising those vacancies to our tenants who are currently unemployed and claiming? And gone out specifically to them, because I certainly know of one tenant who says that he's filling in lots of job applications, never gets anything. And if I've got one in a relatively small number of properties in Littleover, there must be other people who it's almost like those young people trying to get apprenticeships, that we're not looking at that potential of our own people. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is allied to that. When people are trying to get back into the mainstream, and we're supporting a whole cohort of those people all the time through the homelessness routes. Working outside is supposed to be one of the things, and working with nature is supposed to be a positive experience. Is there any way that some of those people could be brought in to do maybe even work experience alongside the gardening teams and move some of those through into employment from work experience? Because I'm just thinking there are two. If we haven't explored either of those, maybe we could.
Yeah. The first question, sorry, Jim, just the first question, Paul Cole would answer that for you, because we normally advertise through DCC and Derby Homes, and we have started now to advertise through social media, and we've worked with Paul Cole and our comms team, Lucy, to try and get adverts out that way in different arenas so that we can reach people like our tenants and others, not just the normal standard ways we've always done it, because the normal standard ways haven't worked that well. No. Paul, would you just be able to confirm that?
Yeah, that's right. Anyone signed up to the councils, because it's just the same platform application process, will get notifications if they've asked for notifications. But then we've been working a lot harder recently to get them out through all social media channels and LinkedIn, which some people do still use. I think it's a big thing with younger people now. For some reason, they're being resurgent. We're also implementing a new email platform, which so unfortunately at the minute we're not able to do it, but you know, when it becomes more timely, we'll be able to target people and maybe have a sign up for job alerts email that we can just hit people with whenever things are brought out.
No, it's food for thought. That's a good idea, you know. Michael?
Yeah, I think what we've done there is we've highlighted what Derby Homes are doing to try and tackle the recruitment ones. I think what we need to do is to ask the City Council what they're doing on their grounds maintenance ones, to see if they're
fair comment,
to see if they've got a more targeted recruitment ones. I think, to be fair to the council, their revised job descriptions really did help in getting fully staffed up the first time round.
Okay. Well, I think they slightly, they did amend what the technical requirements they got of the individuals applying, so it didn't put people off, because they were going to train them in, you know, whilst after they've been recruited. So which did seem to work. Make it more of a career path rather than a.
Jim?
And then I'm on mute. I'm in. Right. Okay. So answering Lucy's question there around some of our rough sleepers, homeless people, the people we're working with who are living in some of our pathways. We have had conversations with Street Pride last year about creating some opportunities, and it's something that's ongoing. We've also had conversations with Kedleston Road Training Centre about developing some bespoke training courses. Now, we have to factor in that, you know, quite a few of our cohort are unable to operate to normal working times. The lifestyle is complex and difficult, you know, and so to get them to go to, you know, a 6-week training course on how to operate machinery isn't going to happen. So it's about trying to come up with something that allows them to have low level a number of training hours, but also make them safe. It's not something I can give you an answer on at the moment, but it absolutely is in our sort of like mind's eye, that next step, because housing somebody from being homeless isn't just the solution of them having a roof. It's then once they're in that property, it's the boredom that comes in. So we have money that's available to create training packages and create this, you know, opportunities for them. But at the moment, the Street Pride one is there, but nothing's set up yet.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was more like work experience rather than going into a job, so that you could be there alongside somebody who's doing work in the garden, so they can be there with a
additionally
a garden
as well,
fork or something.
Yeah, well, additionally as well, we had the rest team away day recently, and the rest team, we talked about this, and Rob, one of the members of staff, has got a couple of people who would be interested in doing some sort of gardening and participating. So we have started the ball rolling around that conversation as well as could we, and back in the old days, we used to do, you know, community events on the old, what was sheltered housing schemes, you know, renovating a scheme or renovating a garden bed. So we've got all those things. It's just trying to get them to come off and trying to get some of our cohort to actually commit to doing that as well, because you know, we have had some people who have taken up art, and that's something they can do in their own home and been very successful with it, but you know, going out to on a wet day with a garden fork or to go and pick up leaves isn't always as attractive as what we think it might be.
Okay, and if you'd just like to all look, guys, Laurie's put a comment on there about the customer engagement team, what they're doing as well. I don't know if you've read that one.
I mean, just to confirm as well what Steve said, you know, we're all struggling, and it has been a topic at SMT about recruitment. There just seems to be a really low level of applicants, and then the quality of applicants is very, very poor. So we've tried loads of things with Paul to try and, you know, and we've relaxed person specifications, and, you know, to make it more, it's for people to come in with the right sort of attitude, and we can teach them the skills, but it's still very difficult.
Right. If I can draw this one to a close, and I'm going to close it on a positive. Tony won't think it's a positive, but for me, it was a positive. Based on my recent experiences with the grounds maintenance team starting out winter work around my area, you're right, Ian. It has made a good start, and the leaf collection and all the stuff they've done was up to standard. It was really good. So if they carry that on, Tony will be happy next year to pay for the service.
Sorry, guys, got to go.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Same to you, Dennis.
So that's Dennis. Merry Christmas, Dennis.
Despite Tony's comments on the increases, are we happy to recommend this as an overall report?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll just to say we'll continue to come back to you with an update. Please. Don't worry.
And I think that just leaves one item: common room and community space policy.
And that one's mine. So bear with me. I'll just get the board report up.
I bet you thought it was never going to come to you.
I know. I was waiting. I've been waiting all evening. So
Well,
yeah,
save the best till last.
Definitely, and the shortest till last as well. So basically, this report, we are requesting an update to the common rooms and community space policy and procedure. So the original policy was approved at operational board in June 2020, and it's not due to come up again for review till 2023. So basically, we opened all of the community rooms up to all of our residents, or I should say service, that pay the service charges, so all of our tenants in July, and then we opened up to everybody, so all groups within the community on the 1st of November. And then since then, bookings have gone crazy. There's been lots of people that have wanted to use the rooms, which is fantastic. But there have been several requests that have been made that are not clearly defined in the original policy.
Right.
As I say, it's not due to be reviewed until 2023. So hence we've come to operational board to have this amendment approved. So basically, the thought behind this is that we want to allow maximum safety and inclusion for all Derby Homes customers.
Yeah.
So just to give a brief overview, we've got 22 community rooms across the city that we manage on behalf of Derby City Council. And as I say, they're a great asset. So we need to encourage the fact that we are using them to maximum capacity, that we fully support local bookings, particularly with Derby Homes residents. And we need to focus on social inclusion, particularly after the pandemic, where there's been lots of people that have felt socially isolated, etc. So we want to encourage maximum accessibility. So just a couple of groups, just a few examples of people that have booked the rooms recently. So we've got Knit and Natter, we've got games nights, we've got bingo, we have a group called Move More, which includes encouraging people with mobility issues. We've got yoga, coffee mornings. The customer voice use Humber Close to have all of their meetings. So a real asset to the community, and we need to make sure we're being fair in the way that we allocate the room bookings. So the suggested amendment is to basically consider block bookings. So that's a consecutive booking of over a day or more of a community room will be considered on a case-by-case basis. So the block booking will only be considered if it's for an event which is open to the public, or it's involving the whole community, or it's working towards Derby Homes strategic objectives. So we've had to create this community room policy to ensure the safety of customers, to give clear guidance regarding the charging structure as well, and the booking requirements and the expectations of anybody that's wishing to hire the room. So health and safety implications if this amended policy isn't approved. So there will be an inconsistency of booking in the community rooms, which would obviously be unfair to customers that are using the room. Yeah. So basically we would like to encourage the fair and consistent use of the rooms to make sure that we're all inclusive, that we are non-discriminatory, that there are no barriers to booking the rooms, etc. So that's in a nutshell where the request to amend the policy comes from. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions or if you're happy to approve the.
Sorry, you want to carry on?
No. Honestly, yep. Bob?
Tony first, yeah.
Just a quick one. If you have a block booking, would you liaise with anybody who has a sort of a regular each week type event in that room and make sure they're happy to not have their event that week?
I think, Tony, what we would say is if we've got a regular booking and they are particularly a resident of Derby Homes that pays a service charge, they would get priority over external bookers. So we would not want to obviously exclude if it's a weekly booking and it's an established group, they've already booked, that booking is secure. So if a block booker comes along and said, can we have this? They would have to work around those existing bookings in a fair and transparent way. That is how we would do it. So it's first come, first serve. If we had a block booker and we'd said, yes, you can have the room, and then we have somebody, a resident who wants to come and book it, we would liaise with that block booker if it's an external booker and say, is there any way we can have some flexibility here? But again, because it's not defined in the policy at the moment, it kind of opens up that gap. We haven't got anything firm to say to somebody who wants to block book yes or no. So we're just giving Derby Homes the flexibility to be able to have those conversations with somebody who wants to block book, because it sets a precedent if we say yes, but it's not in the policy. Yeah, no, so we're just trying to protect the asset of Derby Homes and Derby City, really, for the use of primarily for our residents.
Yep. Okay. And may I say, I was heartened to hear that the community rooms are on the up again, because that's really good, because there was a problem. well, maybe here, but at one time there was a concern about the lack of use, but now they seem to have gone the other way, and that's good news.
Yes, and of course, obviously, with what's happening at the moment with COVID, we've put in place PPE in all of the rooms.
Yeah.
We've got a full COVID risk assessment in all of the rooms, etc. So we're making groups aware, and officers are also showing them around the rooms on point of booking to go through the booking policies, procedures, health and safety, alarm codes, how to work the heating. So we're being very proactive as a team in the effective management of these rooms, and the teams are working really hard to make sure that anybody that wants to access those rooms are given the opportunity to. Good. Right, guys, it just leaves me to say, and we're happy to approve, and I think it's good you identified this, Laurie, at 4.4. I think that's good, and we can see clearly what the new changes are. So are we happy to approve?
Yes.
Yep. There you go. Approved.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Right. That's all the stuff. Is Part B. There's nothing from Part B. There was no questions raised in. The next meeting is on the 10th of March at 6 p.m. And may I say, as the last meeting of the year, I thank all of you for your support and for voting me in again tonight. But generally speaking, thanks for your support. I think there's been a lot of great banter tonight, and that's what we need. You know, we did a bit light-hearted as well. It's some serious stuff there. And I'd like to wish you all a happy Christmas, and dare I suggest, a very merry New Year. And main things, look after yourselves.
Okay. Happy Christmas to you all.
Happy Christmas,
And
everyone.
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Steve, enjoy yourself, Steve.
Thanks, Bob, and you, mate.
Don't drink too much.
Well, I will do that.
You must have looked that unhappy then, Steve, that he picked you out.
No, he's my mate, Bob. Thanks, Bob, and you, and give my best to Mrs. M as well, mate.
Steve sends his regards.
Ta-da, see ya.